The spirit awakening, the first step in activating their bloodline, normally required several days. But now, it was completed in just a short hour. Luo Ning had succeeded in the spirit awakening of her bloodline, so her entire aura had changed. Light glinted from within her eyes with a deep power. "Big sister!" Luo Ning cried out emotionally. However, Luo Bing indicated for her to be quiet while pointing outside. She meant that Long Chen was still outside. Hence, Luo Ning hastily put on her clothes, as her old clothes had been blasted apart by the eruption of her blood qi. After putting on new clothes, she was still excited. "Big sister, I feel completely reborn. You have to try it too. That fellow Long Chen really is amazing." Luo Bing nodded and consumed the remaining pill. But with Luo Ning showing the way, she first took off her clothes before starting the spirit awakening. As a result, she took a full 2 hours to complete the spirit awakening. When she finally opened her eyes, Luo Ning cried out excitedly, "Big sister, a violet dragon mark appeared in your eyes. It's the sign of the ancestral bloodline awakening." "Really?" Luo Bing herself was shocked and hastily took out a mirror. Deep in her eyes, there was a violet mark. It was faint, but it was definitely there. "This is amazing. Big sister, you can now be classified as a peak genius of the family. You can enjoy the special treatment of a peak genius," exclaimed Luo Ning, practically dancing. "I have to call Long Chen in and thank him properly." Luo Ning turned around, causing Luo Bing to jump and drag her back. "You foolish girl, I'm still not wearing anything." Luo Bing was speechless. This little sister of hers was always so impatient and didn't think things through. Once she put on her clothes, she said, "We owe Long Chen a huge debt this time. I don't even know how we're supposed to repay him. Make sure to be more polite to him. It's rude to quarrel with someone who has given you such a favor." These 2 medicinal pills were absolute supreme treasures. Even Luo Bing had never seen or heard of such a thing. What kind of medicinal pill could have such an effect? Long Chen said that he had refined the pills, but Luo Bing didn't believe it. Although she didn't know where he had gotten them, she was filled with gratitude. But at the same time, she felt the pressure. What else? Doesn't he have intentions toward us? "We can just marry him together," said Luo Ning casually. "You foolish girl, you can't even tell when he's joking? He only looks at you like a child. It's the same for me and Mu Qingyun. He doesn't have those feelings," said Luo Bing. "I don't believe it. He might not like me, but it's impossible for him to not like you. Unless he isn't a man," said Luo Ning decisively. In her eyes, her big sister was the most beautiful existence, someone that no man could resist. Let alone within the academy, even within their family, she was a famous beauty ever since she was a child. It was unknown how many people had pursued her. As Luo Ning had always remained by her big sister's side as a bodyguard, she no longer found such a thing odd. In all these years, she hadn't seen a single man not attracted to Luo Bing, so she was even more confident in her sister's beauty than her own. "You really are hopeless. Although Long Chen is from the lower world, he has seen more things than we have. That's what tempered his character. Furthermore, when it comes to beauty, who can compare to the Academy's #1 beauty?" sighed Luo Bing. "You're talking about the Dean's granddaughter, Bai Shishir, who is first on the Heaven Tier Immortal rankings?" asked Luo Ning. "Other than her, who else? Is she really so beautiful?" "Yes, to a kind of pinnacle that makes others forget to breathe. She is the true beauty. The moon hides itself before her, and flowers are ashamed to be in her presence. Even birds and beasts are envious of her beauty. Furthermore, there is a kind of noble temperament around her, making it feel like just looking at her is blasphemous. I once saw her. Although it was just a moment, it was unforgettable." That's not really the topic to discuss. Call in Long Chen. "We have to thank him," said Luo Bing. The 2 of them opened the door just in time to see Long Chen toss a mouthful of pills into his mouth. Although they didn't see it clearly, they all had a layer of light around them. It seemed that they were all top grade. He ate top grade pills like snacks? The 2 sisters turned to stone. This was too crazy, wasn't it? Once they were back inside the room, Long Chen once more felt their bloodline fluctuations. My medicinal pills are a bit too violent for your bodies. Your meridians have been injured by the fierceness. However, this damage isn't a bad thing either. As your spirit blood heals itself, it will widen your meridians. I should warn you not to indiscriminately eat medicinal pills if you sense this later. Don't cultivate or fight within the next 3 days. Just let your body recover naturally. After saying that, his expression grew solemn. I hope that you can keep the matter of me refining pills secret. In the academy, other than you two, no one else knows I can refine pills like this. Although I'm not afraid of trouble, I would prefer it if I can be more low-key while I have yet to stabilize here. Luo Ning and Luo Bing's hearts quivered. He was truly saying that he had refined his own pills. If that was true, Luo Bing struggled with herself for a moment, but she couldn't help saying, Long Chen, I know that a person should know not to push too far. But as a disciple of the Luo family, I must shamelessly say this. If you can refine these pills, then if you are willing, you can form a collaboration with the Luo family. You can set any price for these pills. Of course, if you are unwilling, we two sisters will swear on the heavens that a third person will not know this secret. Luo Bing's face felt burning hot when she asked this. These 2 pills that Long Chen had given them were already a tremendous kindness. For her to ask for more, was that not going too far? However, the effect of this pill was just too miraculous. If the Luo family could obtain a steady supply of these pills, their current emergency would be resolved. It was too important for her not to ask. Luo Bing and Luo Ning almost couldn't look at Long Chen after making such a request, but Long Chen laughed. With our relationship, that's just a minor matter. Once I've stabilized myself in the academy, I hope to go take a trip to your Luo family and discuss this collaboration. This response made Luo Bing and Luo Ning ecstatic. They wished they could hug and kill for this. It was the best news they could obtain. However, Long Chen was even happier than them inside. Now he had paved a path to the Luo family. Later on, he could go search for information about his mother. Luo Ning and Luo Bing were delighted. They had essentially done something meritorious for their family. If Long Chen formed a collaboration with the Luo family, then the Luo family's current predicament would be resolved. Furthermore, both of them had now awakened their bloodline power, so they could start unleashing their bloodline divine arts. Even if Gu Fei and the others were concealing their power, both of them had the confidence to defeat them and win the immortal competition. The reason that the Luo family could become the overlord of a prefecture wasn't because of luck. It was because of their own power. Their own foundation ran extremely deep, and their bloodline power was terrifying. Luo Bing and Luo Ning had just awoken this power and needed to go into seclusion. One reason was to get used to their new conditions and start cultivating the secret arts relating to their bloodline. The other reason was because violet qi still continued to come from their bodies, and it was too obvious. If they went out, it would be telling everyone that they had awakened their bloodlines. Then their enemies would be prepared. Taking a page out of their enemy's playbook, they chose to stay hidden during this time. When they came out, they would give Gu Fei and the others a nice surprise. Luo Bing then sent word back to their family that the two of them had managed to achieve the spiritual awakening of their bloodlines. After arranging these things, Long Chen could be considered to have taken his first step to going to the Luo family. Hence, he felt a weight fall from his shoulders. However, when it came to looking for his mother, he felt both anticipations as well as a certain nervousness. He didn't even remember the face of his biological mother, so he had some contradicting emotions when it came to looking for her. After a while, Long Chen returned to his home and started familiarizing himself with the 7 Supreme Yang technique and the Starry River of the Sky art. When he tried to use the 7 Supreme Yang technique, he found that its creator truly had some amazing insights. The human body already came with all the elements of metal, wood, water, fire, earth, wind, and lightning. But even Long Chen hadn't sensed these energies within him until now. That was because they were far too weak. They could be considered to be in slumber, so subtle that they were completely overlooked. Long Chen only controlled lightning and fire. According to the 7 Supreme Yang technique, he needed to draw out the potential of his metal, wood, water, earth, and wind energies. When he used his flame energy or thunder force, These energies would then undergo a transformation, becoming fuel to support his lightning and fire. However, Long Qin didn't do this. As he cultivated the 9-star Hegemon body art, the 7 Supreme Yang technique was only here to deceive others. His true trump card wasn't his thunder force or his flame energy, it was his own body. He couldn't put the cart in front of the horse. Long Chen's divine ring appeared. After that, red, orange, yellow, green, azure, blue, and violet colors wove together. The mix of metal, wood, water, fire, earth, wind, and lightning energies forced a rainbow ring out. It was different from his usual divine ring. The colors were not separate in this divine ring, they were mixed together. When he tried to circulate his thunder force, he found that all the colors ignited to become one color. Long Qin could clearly feel the metal, wood, water, earth, and wind energy transforming into lightning energy. But their support was currently extremely weak because Long Qin had only awakened those energies for appearances. He hadn't let them grow. However, his flame energy could not be absorbed into the flow. Likewise, when he used his flame energy, his thunder force would not be absorbed by it either. It was because his flame energy and thunder force were independent entities. They came from Lei Long and Hua Long. Thus, the 7 Supreme Yang technique wasn't effective on them. Long Qin then tried to use his divine ring. When his divine ring appeared, the rainbow divine ring grew with it. He tested it several times and found that the rainbow divine ring could limitlessly grow. But once it grew like that, the 7 Supreme Yang technique's power was also dispersed. Long Qin didn't care about that. The only thing he cared about was whether or not the 7 Supreme Yang technique could cover up his actual divine ring, and this showed that it could. From the outside, it looked like a messy ring of colors. It was impossible to see the 6-color divine ring inside of it. Seeing that everything looked good, Long Qin switched to the starry river of the sky art. After that, a starry river appeared in his divine ring, and it was somewhat similar to his star diagram. However, when the starry river appeared, his 108,000 stars suddenly quivered. Boom! The starry river collapsed, replaced by his star diagram. It won't even allow a substitution? Long Qin jumped in shock. He hadn't even activated the 9-star Hegemon body art, but as soon as the starry river appeared, the 9-star Hegemon body art automatically destroyed it. He tried it a few more times, but every time the starry river appeared, the 9-star Hegemon body art would automatically activate and destroy it. Whatever. A starry river and a star diagram are only different in shape. Outsiders shouldn't be able to tell the difference. Long Qin could only give up on this. This kind of thing was a complete headache. He didn't have the time or energy to waste on this. As long as others didn't instantly recognize him, it was fine. His status would be revealed sooner or later. But the later, the better. Time to try using astral energy. Long Qin closed his eyes. He began to circulate astral energy according to the starry river of the sky art. When a star diagram appeared in his hands, Long Qin felt like his Yuan spirit had been extracted from his body. He could see the cosmos and the limitless stars. It felt like he had entered a state of emptiness. It was as if he was a spectator observing the world. Suddenly, pain racked his body and he coughed up a mouthful of blood. This special state was instantly broken, and Long Qin was brought back to reality. The star diagram in his hands had exploded, turning his hands into a bloody mess. He then rubbed his head to find that his forehead had also split open. Blood slowly flowed out. What happened? Long Qin still didn't understand what was going on. He had almost died just now. Without condensing the 7th star, you circulated the 7th level of the 9-star Hegemon body art. Your guts are pretty big. If I hadn't taken action, you would be dead. An ancient voice suddenly rang out in Long Qin's mind. Senior. Long Qin was delighted. This was the mysterious voice that had repeatedly rang out in his mind ever since he had started cultivating the 9-star Hegemon body art. Furthermore, this time, it was far clearer, no longer disjointed. Did this mean that he could uncover some of the secrets of the 9 stars? Great 9-star heir, you've finally come to the immortal world. We can see hope. Quickly grow up. 9-star heirs all grow up against adversity. You are the strongest warriors of this cosmos. Don't humiliate the prestige of the 9-star heirs. I don't know how you ended up touching the power of the cosmos, but remember, without condensing the 7th star, touching that power is the same as killing yourself. I could save you once, but I can't save you a second time. Furthermore, using this power will allow your enemies to instantly lock down your location and attack. Remember this at all costs. Remember, Senior. Long Chen cried out, but that ancient voice had vanished like an illusion. Long Chen rubbed his hand, and the blood continued to flow. He had actually caused such a strange injury to himself. It was only when he slowly circulated the 9-star hegemon body art that the wound slowly closed. Long Chen finally relaxed slightly. The starry river of the sky art is actually similar to the 9-star hegemon body art's 7th level. I almost died because of it. Long Chen felt a burst of fear. It seemed that he couldn't randomly cultivate things in the future, especially not things that were similar to the 9-star hegemon body art. Long Chen rested for half a day and then went out to hold classes for Mu Qingyun and the others. Time passed just like that until it was the day of the divine competition. Brother San, you've actually fully expelled your mortal chi. When the Unfettered Alliance's disciples gathered, Mu Qingyun suddenly cried out in delight when she looked at Long Chen. The Unfettered Alliance's headquarters was a small pavilion that required 3,000 immortal crystals per month to rent. Long Chen was sitting inside, with the Unfettered Alliance's disciples staring at him in shock. He had gone into seclusion for the past 7 days. The last time they saw him, his mortal chi was still present, but now it was completely gone. He even had a trace of immortal spiritual chi in his body at this moment. Long Chen was already such a handsome man that even his worn-down black robes couldn't conceal his heroic air. But now that his mortal chi had been expelled, it was like the dust had been removed from fine jade. His entire appearance was elevated, making him appear like a crane amongst chickens. Hee, Brother San has grown more and more handsome. I heard that our High Firmament Academy has a #1 beautiful woman and a #1 beautiful man. I've never seen them, but I bet that the #1 beautiful man doesn't have Brother San's flavor, giggled Zhong Ling. Long Chen involuntarily laughed. Why do you all seem to be in such a good mood? Do you have absolute confidence in this competition? Of course. After a month of hellish training, if we still couldn't get first place, we'd be ruining Brother San's prestige. We can't lose Boss Long San's face, declared Zhong Xiu. In this 1 month, Long Chen had sealed them off and given them training in a similar way that he had trained the Dragonblood Legion. Of course, he had lowered the standards as these were disciples of rich families. They couldn't possibly be like the Dragonblood warriors who lived every moment knowing that they could lose their lives if they weren't strong enough. However, it had to be said that these disciples finally had some of the stuff that made true experts. There was confidence and ease in their eyes that showed their accomplishments. Mu Qingyun's sword was no longer hanging on her waist but on her back. Furthermore, at no time did it ever leave her body. That wasn't something that Long Chen had taught her. It was something she had naturally comprehended after gaining insight into the sword Dao. She could already be said to have entered the gates to the realm of sword cultivators. Of course, compared to Yu Zifeng, there was simply no comparison. That was because in Yu Zifeng's heart, there was nothing else other than the sword. Brother San, when the competition starts, you can just sit and drink tea while we perform. We'll beat Chu Kuang until he pisses himself. Just cheer for us. Zhong Ling clenched her fists, seemingly already seeing their victory. I suddenly really envy you, sighed Long Chen. What? It really is nice being young. Youngsters can be naive. But me, at this age, I'm no longer qualified to be so naive. Long Chen shook his head. Zhong Ling and the others were still befuddled. Mu Qingyun asked, Brother San, what are you talking about? Are we too naive? You don't have a good opinion of our chances in the divine competition? Qingyun, you are the leader. Confidence is the most basic quality, but you also must have an understanding of each side's power. In your opinion, even without me, how high are your odds of beating the Prime Glory Alliance? Asked Long Chen. If it was 1 month ago, we would definitely be defeated. But now I've gained an initial understanding of the sword Dao and also trained in the firmament cloud sword art. Although I don't dare to say that I can definitely defeat Chu Kuang, I'm at least 50% confident. Even if I can't beat him, I should only be slightly weaker. With Zhong Ling, Zhong Xiu, Li Kai, Wang Xing, Lu Wei, and the others who have been trained into first-rate experts thanks to you, I feel like our chances of victory are at least over 90%, said Mu Qingyun. In this month, she felt like she had completely transformed. After comprehending the sword Dao, her killing power was so great that it frightened her. That was why she was so confident. Furthermore, everyone else that she had just mentioned had made exceptional gains as well. Everyone had transformed during this time. If they all went into the competition together, they were confident that they would win. Long Chen nodded, not saying anything. Mu Qingyun then asked, "Brother San, is there a problem?" "There's no problem on the surface. Your estimation of both sides' power can be considered correct. But can you forecast a bit deeper?" "A bit deeper?" Mu Qingyun was confused. She didn't understand what he was talking about. Not good. Suddenly, a disciple of the Unfettered Alliance came running in, covered in sweat. He looked as if the heavens were collapsing, alarming everyone. "What's going on?" asked Mu Qingyun. "Big Sister Qingyun, Chu Kuang is absolutely despicable. He has drawn in outside reinforcements. The Immortal Institute's Gu Fei, the Formation Institute's Tang Yaochen, the Soul Institute's Li Qingbei, and the other famous experts have all joined the Prime Glory Alliance and plan on attending this divine competition. He just handed in the list and I ran over as soon as I saw it." The disciples' words were like thunder exploding beside Mu Qingyun's ears. Everyone was dumbfounded. "That's against the rules." Li Kai shouted furiously. These people were all famous within their own respective institutes. How could they simply join the competition of the God Institute? "I've asked people and they said that they are all subordinates of the Chu family and can attend the competition under their status as followers of Chu Kuang, so it's not against the rules." As for Gu Fei, for some reason he actually gave up on the Immortal Institute's competition to help Chu Kuang. "It might be because he wants revenge on Brother San," said that disciple helplessly. Everyone was shocked and enraged. One by one, they turned to look at Long Chen. On the other hand, Long Chen's expression remained indifferent from the start. "Brother San, what do you think?" asked Mu Qingyun. "This chair is comfy." Long Chen shrugged. "Brother San, now isn't the time for jokes. Those fellows are all very terrifying existences," said Mu Qingyun anxiously. "I'm not joking. It's better to sit in a comfy chair to think rather than hopping around like a clown. When I asked you whether or not you've considered looking deeper, I was referring to this. If Chu Kuang didn't do such a thing, would he still be Chu Kuang? Let me explain it to you frankly. This divine competition has a completely different meaning from normal times," said Long Chen, relaxing into his chair with his hands on the back of his head. "Why is it different?" pressed Mu Qingyun. "Because the Discipline Institute's head judge and the Chu family are fighting. Chu Kuang can only win, or the consequences will be terrible for him. If he loses, not only will he be executed, but the Chu family's force within the academy will be severely damaged. Although it wouldn't be completely pulling them out by the roots, their prestige will definitely suffer. That's why Chu Kuang will use any sinister schemes he can think of in order to win. There's nothing surprising about this." Just at this moment, a bell rang out repeatedly, making Mu Qingyun and the others tense. "The divine competition will start in 2 hours. All forces gather at the field." A voice rang out through the air. Long Chen stood and stretched. He had a relaxed and easy smile on his face. "I wish I could be low-key, but some people always refuse to let me. But that's fine. I should move my body a bit, or I'll get rusty." The divine competition was a yearly competition held by the God Institute. This was the only way for ordinary disciples without any background or wealth to join the ranks of the elites in the inner academy. According to the academy's rules, outer academy disciples would directly join the inner academy upon reaching the divine flame realm. However, if they advanced through that process, their treatment would only be slightly better compared to in the outer academy. However, if they passed through this competition, their treatment would be completely different. This competition could be considered a turning point in the disciples' cultivation paths. Although those who could come to the High Firmament Academy mostly had decent financial circumstances, it was only at the level of decent. The immortal world was simply enormous, and there were endless sects and experts. Because of that, the number of geniuses in this world was endless. There were plenty of talented people from places with money, but even those like Li Kai and the others, with their financial power, didn't have the power to directly join the inner academy. Hence, it could be seen just how much wealth was required to enter the inner academy directly. The High Firmament Academy's rules were very simple. If you were a true genius, then don't worry. There would be plenty of resources available to you. However, if you weren't a genius, you could still come, but don't forget to bring money. Even if you were trash, if you had the money, you could still enter. Using these people's words, they were using the money of the mediocre to raise the geniuses. Geniuses needed resources, and the mediocre wanted the reputation. Both sides got what they wanted. However, people without money also had a chance. People without good talent or family circumstances had to work with their life on the line in order to obtain things that others could obtain simply by reaching out their hand. There was nothing absolutely fair in this world. But the Academy's rules were all good things to every person who came. Whether it was Mu Qingyun or Luo Bing, neither of them was qualified to directly enter the inner academy. That was why they were all fighting for this chance. Mu Qingyun had already lost one chance. If she failed again, she would not be able to try again. That was because her cultivation base was already at the peak of mortal transcendence, and she would soon enter the divine flame realm. If she failed this time, she couldn't possibly wait another year. She was currently in her golden cultivation period and couldn't waste this time. If she failed, she could only make her breakthrough and become an ordinary inner academy disciple. Everyone else in the Unfettered Alliance had the same fate as her. These rules might be cruel, but they were fair. In this world, opportunities could only be grasped by a select few. At this moment, Long Chen led them to the plaza, which was already packed with countless people. All the disciples of every institute were allied to watch this competition. However, there were so many people that some of them had started camping out here a few days in advance. Some slower ones didn't even have a chance to find a spot and had to stand at a great distance. When Long Chen walked in, all eyes concentrated on him. He, the newcomer boss Long San with the greatest limelight in the entire academy, has finally entered the stage. A good show is about to start. He entered as a worker and soared into becoming a disciple of the Pill Institute in an instant. He also possesses his status as an instructor of the God Institute. How amazing! Is your news outdated? Boss Long San already has another status. He's an instructor of the Immortal Institute as well. Furthermore, Heaven Master Dong Ming personally bestowed that status on him. It can be said that the Immortal Institute cares about him even more than the God Institute. Others want to become instructors for the benefits, but Boss Long San is apparently a genius at refining pills and magical arts. Hence, the Immortal Institute wants to focus on grooming him. Just watch, it won't be long before the youngest Heaven Master of the High Firmament Academy's history appears, said someone. You keep calling him Boss Long San. Are you willing to be his subordinate? What kind of ability does he have to make you flatter him so much? He's a lower world ascender who didn't even have the money to pay for the registration fee. He had to cheat by going through the path of a worker. Just how inferior do you feel about yourselves to call him boss? Are you not worried about losing the face of your ancestors? Sneered someone else. The people around this person were instantly enraged. Are you an idiot? The boss here is nothing more than an honorific, just like young master. What does it have to do with our ancestors? Boss Long San didn't walk an ordinary path. So what? Aren't you just an ordinary disciple of the inner academy? You're not even an elite disciple. What qualifications do you have to look down on others? Little fellow, I've remembered you. Just wait. Don't let me run into you again, or I'll make you kneel and call me daddy so that you understand the difference between Boss Long San and daddy. Seeing so many fierce gazes cast his way, that person instantly became afraid. After a moment's hesitation, he gave up his spot and fled. Count yourself smart. Otherwise, once I know who you are a dead man, sneered someone else. By slipping away, that person took advantage of no one knowing who he was. He finally experienced what it meant for a mouth to bring about calamity. Countless people whispered to themselves, clearly discussing Long Chen. Also, quite a few brazen female disciples actually waved at him. Once some started waving, others started greeting him. A few of them even shouted his name. Hee, Brother San, your charisma really is big. These senior apprentice sisters have even started to seduce you, giggled Zhongling. The academy did not prevent matters between a man and woman as it even permitted dual cultivation. However, those who wished to dual cultivate had to register within the academy, or if they were caught, they would be expelled from the academy. Thus, there weren't too many taboos between the men and women of the academy, so some people liked to be brazen. With Long Chen's soaring fame, his limitless potential, and his appearance, many women wished to dual cultivate with him. For them to express that to him openly was not an embarrassing thing. Brother San, why act so cool? Say hello to those senior apprentice sisters. Perhaps some of them might become sister-in-law San in the future, giggled Zhong Xiu. Your sisters-in-law won't appear here. Those kinds of feelings are purely a kind of resonance between souls, not two people having their own goals in interacting. If it was purely for cultivation and only later were feelings born, it would be an insult to love. Long Chen shook his head. Long Chen. Just as Long Chen reached their position, Luo Bing and Luo Ning ran in. What? Has something happened on your side? Asked Long Chen hastily. No, it's your side that's changed. Gu Fei led all his experts over to be Chu Kuang's reinforcements. We basically have no opponents on our side. But we've already handed in our list, so we can't be your reinforcements. What can we do? Asked Luo Bing anxiously. Luo Bing and Luo Ning had been waiting until the very last moment to come out of seclusion. However, they had never expected such a thing to occur. Gu Fei had actually given up on the immortal competition. In other words, Luo Bing's side could take the crown without any effort at all. That made Luo Bing and Luo Ning feel like they had just unleashed a powerful punch on a ball of cotton. The feeling of having power but not being able to release it was difficult to bear. Furthermore, since they had handed in their list of attendance early on, they couldn't help Long Chen. When they learned that Chu Kuang had managed to form an alliance with all these experts just in order to obtain an absolute victory in the divine competition, Luo Bing was so anxious that her eyes reddened. It's fine. Everything is within expectations. Let me tell you this. In front of absolute power, all schemes are meaningless. Don't worry. With me here, you can rest assured. Watch out for them having some devious play on your side as well, said Long Chen. Seeing that Long Chen seemed prepared for this, Luo Bing felt better. She nodded and rushed back to the Immortal Institute with Luo Ning. Their competition was also starting soon. However, with no Gu Fei on that side, there was absolutely no suspense over who would win. Thus, everyone in the academy came here to see the battle in the God Institute. Chu Kuang has come. An uproar erupted within the crowd when Chu Kuang walked into the plaza with a large group of experts. He had recovered his normal appearance. Furthermore, the divine energy fluctuations around his body had grown even more powerful. The God Institute's Chu Kuang, the Immortal Institute's Gu Fei, the Formation Institute's Tang Yaochen, the Soul Institute's Li Chungbei, and the various famous existences within multiple other institutes. Who would have thought that Chu Kuang could gather them all up today? This kind of lineup is enough to cause despair. Not just that. Look at that red-haired fellow. Isn't he that Xiang Kejia? He's a fire element expert from the Five Elements Institute. He has made quite a reputation for himself in less than half a year in the academy. Also, there's that green-eyed fellow with the hat, the one who looks demonic. He's called Demon Yangfang. He's also a frightening existence. Moreover, there are many other familiar faces. Although I don't know all their names, they are all incredibly powerful. Chu Kuang really is shameless to gather them all. These experts that had joined the Prime Glory Alliance were all very powerful Outer Academy disciples within the High Firmament Academy. They all had their own reputation and fame. At the same time as people sighed over the Chu family's immense influence, they also felt immense disdain for Chu Kuang's actions. So what if he won this battle? His reputation was completely wrecked now. Mu Qingyun was infuriated upon seeing this lineup. Chu Kuang was absolutely shameless. This was practically cheating. Mu Qingyun, I heard that you've all been training as hard as you can? I can honestly tell you now that all your efforts were meaningless. This world's opportunities only go to the strong. The rules are created by the strong in order to bind the weak to their whims. As for the strong, they are forever above the rules. You think you can become an elite inner academy disciple? Just keep dreaming. With me here, you will never achieve that dream in this lifetime. Those that refuse me, Chu Kuang, have also forfeited their futures, said Chu Kuang arrogantly. A hissing sound rang out from the crowd. Everyone had long since heard that Chu Kuang was unbridled and lecherous. He had over 10 registered dual cultivation partners, but it was unknown just how many unregistered ones he had. After Mu Qingyun rejected Chu Kuang turned her into an example, suppressing her this entire time. It was as if he was telling every female disciple that if they rejected him, they wouldn't have a good ending. How shameless! Does he see women as playthings? Some women are self-deprecating, as if they need to rely on men to cultivate. But even then, do they have to rely on such a vile person? I heard that Chu Kuang had lost at Long Chen's hands consecutively. Last time, he was even almost incinerated. But the heavens are really blind. Why not just let him die? Countless people were infuriated by Chu Kuang's arrogance. While many women were embarrassed, the men also felt like Chu Kuang was provoking them, as if silently looking down on them for being powerless. Mu Qingyun quivered with rage. Chu Kuang was too shameless. With such a giant power disparity, how could they fight? Gu Fei, Tang Yaochen, Li Chengbei, they were all famous figures. Any one of them would cause Mu Qingyun's side to fall to an absolute disadvantage. Now that so many experts on this level had joined the Prime Glory Alliance, their side didn't have the slightest chance. The rules of the academy were truly frustrating. How was this any different than cheating? But if it was cheating, well, she could also cheat and invite outside reinforcements. But other than Luo Bing and Luo Ning, she had no reinforcements to draw on. Furthermore, the two of them had been included in Chu Kuang's calculations and couldn't come, so there was nothing she could do. She was filled with fury but also helplessness. However, she suppressed her tears because she knew that would only make her even more aggrieved. Seeing that she didn't even dare to open her mouth for fear of crying, Long Chen couldn't help shaking his head. When could these children grow up? He stepped forward and cupped his fists. Hey, aren't you the noble knight Chu Kuang who was almost incinerated and even slapped in the Discipline Institute but didn't dare to even make a sound? That good brother who tucked his tail between his legs and fled? For someone about to be executed, you sure are arrogant, aren't you? The infuriated Mu Qingyun instantly laughed, along with the other disciples of the Unfettered Alliance. In fact, many of the other disciples also laughed in delight. These words were like blades slicing through Chu Kuang's flesh. The way Long Chen could so solemnly call Chu Kuang a noble knight was particularly remarkable and filled with satire. Considering how much Chu Kuang had infuriated everyone, even if it wasn't funny, they would probably still make sure to laugh loudly. You! Chu Kuang almost choked. He didn't even have the ability to retort. Long Chen, you really are arrogant. In a bit, I'll see if your abilities match the sharpness of your mouth, said the red-haired man beside Chu Kuang. He disdainfully looked down on Long Chen, his gaze full of hostility. What hole did you roll out of? Did you think your red hair could disguise you as a red-haired tortoise? After being in the academy for so long, did you not learn any manners? I was talking to him, so why are you interjecting? Sneered Long Chen, casting a sideways glance at that red-haired man. Long Chen originally didn't want to waste the saliva on talking to these idiots, but Mu Qingyun's side didn't have people who knew how to curse back, so he could only step up. Courting death. This red-haired man was Xiang Kejia, a powerful flame cultivator. As soon as he was angered, flames burst into existence around him, turning him into a man of fire and forcing everyone near him back. Wow, how amazing! Long Chen praised him, staring at him with a shocked expression. Now you realize this? It's too late. Long Chen, today I will dash. What an amazing technique. If you die, there's no need for anyone else to do anything. You can just directly cremate yourself without troubling anyone else. Great. Long Chen raised a thumb at him. Hearing this, Xiang Kejie almost coughed up blood. Just as he thought that Long Chen was shocked by his power, this sudden turn made him reel. Other disciples laughed. They were shocked at his power at first, but Long Chen's comedic ability truly wasn't ordinary. After that, Mu Qingyun and the others' gloom gradually faded. They no longer felt as vexed. Furthermore, Long Chen's easygoing appearance did make them feel some confidence. Long Chen, if you're a man, bring out your real ability. A glib mouth doesn't make a man, interjected the green-eyed man with the hat on his head. He was Devil Eye Yangfang. Long Chen shook his head, wagging his finger at him. First, it was Noble Knight Chu Kuang who spouted bullshit first. Second, the mouth is also an ability. The Tao is transmitted through the mouth. A glib mouth is the foundation of an instructor. You don't have that ability. Third, I'm very curious, which master managed to teach all of you this ability to help a dog eat shit? Fourth, and this is the one I'm most curious about, may I ask if you have a dual cultivation Tao companion? Devil Eye Yangfang was surprised by the final question. He didn't overthink it. Of course, and not just one. Oh. Long Chen nodded as if with sudden comprehension. He pointed at his hat. No wonder your hat is that color. Love blinds you until you're green. Yangfang's hat actually wasn't an ornament. It was a spirit item that assisted him with his devil eye. It had been years since someone had even dared to mention such a thing in front of him. But now Long Chen said it in front of all these people. Long Chen, you are looking to die. With all of you smelly fellows here, do I even need to look? You. Chu Kuang and the others almost exploded with rage. If they were fighting with their mouths, they simply weren't a match for Long Chen. They finally experienced just how tough his mouth was. One word could choke them all. At this time, their faces were swollen like pigs, and Mu Qingyun couldn't help being happy. Just the ability of his mouth was something to envy. In the trial hall, he forced a magistrate to lower his head and apologize to him. Here, he cursed a group of people into being speechless. All the disciples here could be said to have experienced Long Chen's awesomeness. The funniest thing was that every time he spoke, the surrounding disciples would laugh and cheer along, supporting him. Their oppressive entrance plus Chu Kuang's display of oppressive power had shaken Mu Qingyun and the others' confidence, but just with Long Chen's mouth, the tables had turned. Now it was the Unfettered Alliance's disciples whose morale was soaring. I can't be bothered to waste words on you. We'll settle the winner in a bit. Chu Kuang had nothing else to say but to throw out some tough words. If you can't be bothered to waste words, why did you still run over to talk bullshit? Is there too much shit in your heads? You can't help but spout it? Or is it that your roasting last time caused that shit to ferment? Or did my slap break your head? Said Long Chen disdainfully. After losing in the cursing battle, Chu Kuang just had to say such an empty phrase. It was truly irritating. Long Chen. Chu Kuang's voice hissed out from the cracks between his teeth. His hatred toward Long Chen could no longer be expressed with words. Suddenly, the sound of a bell shook everyone's hearts. After that, the disciples hastily took their positions. 3 chairs appeared in the sky, 1 in the east and 2 in the west. Long Chen and the others were in the east. Why does that chair look so familiar? Mumbled Long Chen. Of course it's familiar. You've sat in it before, laughed Mu Qingyun. Wasn't that precisely the head judge's seat? Just as she said this, the head judge also materialized on top of the seat. To the west, Chu Huairan and the other magistrate also appeared. There was 1 in the east, 2 in the west, facing each other. It's rumored that this divine competition is also a bet between the head judge and the 2 magistrates. Apparently, the head judge is very dissatisfied with the Chu family. He has tried to suppress them multiple times and failed, so it seems he wants to use this divine competition to compete with the 2 magistrates. If it's actually a gamble, then the head judge will definitely lose. The power disparity between the two sides is too great. Although most of the disciples here supported Long Qin, admiring him for his courage and eloquence, power was power. This was not a gamble in which luck would decide the winner. Could ants like us understand the bets between giants like them? Don't waste your time guessing. Just watch the result in peace, right? Said another disciple. Whoever won or lost had nothing to do with them. I wonder if it's possible for us to assert to the head judge that Chu Kuang is cheating, whispered Mu Qingyun. The head judge was also looking at Long Qin. When Long Qin saw that gaze, he shook his head. No need. They're cheating. But isn't it the same as how you drew me in as well? What you need to take note of is that this divine competition might not have as many rules to speak of. This is not playing around. This is a true battle and people might die. Be prepared. Just at this moment, the sound of a bell rang out once more. The entire plaza instantly became illusory and faded away. Long Chen and the others seemed to have been transported to another world. The divine competition starts now. Long Chen suddenly found himself brought to a mountain valley. However, the other disciples who weren't part of the competition found that the plaza had transformed into an illusory world. Long Chen and the others were within it, while they were spectating. The plaza had transformed into its own world filled with crisscrossing mountains. It was like a maze. At the center was a tall mountain with a rainbow flag stuck at the top. Whoever seized that flag in the end would win. Long Chen and the others then saw a formation up above them. As they were unable to directly fly up, they could only traverse through the labyrinth-like valleys between the mountains, hoping to find the correct path in the shortest time. Mu Qingyun and the others had experienced this once, so they immediately split up, each of them carrying some glowing powder. They began to search for the right path with the greatest speed. On the other hand, Long Qin closed his eyes. He formed hand seals, sending his spiritual strength flying out. If he could find the path this way, it would save a huge amount of time. The disciples outside instantly understood his intentions. Some shook their heads. Did Long Chen not study the strategies? Did Mu Qingyun not warn him? Spiritual strength is severely suppressed in the formation. Just at this moment, a startled cry rang out from the spectators. Blue smoke appeared on the side belonging to Chu Kuang and rapidly surged forward like the tide. That's the Formation Institute's Tang Yaochen. He's using a formation to find the right path. The blue smoke was extremely rapid. Tang Yaochen was incredibly efficient. On the other hand, Mu Qingyun and the others had only covered a tenth of the necessary area to find the right path. But Chu Kuang's side was already a third done. At this moment, the space around Long Qin quivered, and the suppression of the formation above him appeared. However, he didn't stop. Resisting that suppression, his spiritual strength continued onward. The formation runes lit up. They were originally a thin membrane, but now they began to rise like a bubble around Long Chen. What is going on? Everyone was startled to see this. They had never seen such a phenomenon. Who can explain? Is Long Chen cheating? Whose spiritual strength could possibly resist the entire grand formation? It has nothing to do with spiritual strength. Just at this moment, an old voice rang out. Heaven Master Yunyang. More startled cries rang out. Heaven Master Yunyang had actually been amongst their midst, and none of them had noticed. Heaven Master Yunyang, this disciple wishes to know, if it has nothing to do with spiritual strength, what is it? Then, respected head judge, magistrates, I'll embarrass myself by answering. Heaven Master Yunyang first greeted the head judge and the magistrates. Although he was a heaven master, the Discipline Institute was not under his jurisdiction. The three of them were actually a level higher in terms of status, and to directly respond to such a question would be lacking in manners toward them. The head judge smiled. It's fine. As a heaven master, to quench your disciples' curiosity is natural. We are just bearing witness to this competition. Heaven Master Yunyang nodded and said, the formation is called the Soul Shrouding Formation. If someone tries to use their divine sense to find the path, it will be suppressed. If the other side resists, in order to prevent the disciple's soul from crumbling, the formation will suppress their will, making them give up. Thus, when someone attempts to break free of the formation's spiritual suppression, the formation will automatically suppress their will. So, what you see is the formation attempting to suppress his will. For the formation to start deforming means that Long Chen's will is extremely powerful. Even with the formation's suppression, his divine sense is continuing to spread. Heaven Master Yun Yang's explanation left many disciples befuddled. Heaven Master Yun Yang, disciple will be so bold as to ask a blunt question. What is this will that you are talking about? Whenever I ask any instructors this during their classes, they always give me an ambiguous answer. To tell the truth, I've always felt that those classes I bought were scams because of this. Other than that, disciple will be so bold as to ask Heaven Master Yun Yang if the ranks of the instructors can be cleaned up a bit. Many of them are just eating for free and only a few of them actually have skills. I had the fortune to attend one of Instructor Long Chen's classes for free, and I learned so much. But Instructor Long Chen is too busy, so he doesn't have any class slots available. Disciple knows that these words will offend many people, but with the Discipline Institute's head judge here, disciple feels like only by bringing it up here will there be any effective resolution. An uproar exploded amongst the crowd. This disciple's words were truly sharp. This was practically a public accusation. They looked at Heaven Master Yun Yang's response. He wasn't angry. Instead, he smiled. Young friend, you spoke very well. The instructor ranks are truly a mix. Quite a few instructors are just there to make up the numbers. Because of it, we will not just have to adjust this, but we'll have to change the system. For example, free classes that are not bought by the disciples but held by the academy. The instructor exams will also have to become more stringent, with those who don't fit the ranks being expelled. Young friend, don't worry. If someone causes trouble for you because of today's matter, just find me and I will fix it. A youngster should have this kind of courage. You should all try to learn Instructor Long Chen's sharpness. Only once you reveal your sharp light will the academy see you amongst the crowd and have a chance to pick you out. Many thanks. Heaven Master Yun Yang. That disciple originally only said those words due to his anger at this system. In truth, after he spoke, he grew afraid. But Heaven Master Yun Yang's promise almost made him sob with emotion. Everyone felt admiration for Heaven Master Yun Yang's words. This was a true instructor, modest and receptive. He was on a completely different plane than those instructors who looked down their noses at those who took their classes. Suddenly, shocked cries rang out. Even Chu Huairan's expression changed. Within the formation, Long Chen's hair and clothes were whirling violently. After that, a heaven shaking will came through the formation. Rumbling could be heard through heaven and earth. The formation above his head had been forced back high into the sky, and countless cracks appeared throughout it like it might burst. How can Long Chen's will be so terrifying? Chu Huairan and the other magistrate were alarmed. Even the formation was unable to suppress him. This was something that had never occurred in the countless years that the divine competition was held. Seeing the formation bulging above Long Chen, people's hearts pounded. The will that came through the formation made it seem like a supreme existence was coming from a seemingly weak body. For a moment, people could only stare. These disciples stared at Long Chen like he was a monster. Heaven Master, just what is the will? Asked one brazen disciple. Heaven Master Yun Yang stared at Long Chen, also shocked. He said, the will is an ephemeral power. It really can't be described with words. Some instructors have yet to recognize the power of the will, so they can't answer you. But even if they do, many people will have different answers. Even I cannot give you the correct answer because the will is a power that exists outside of all other powers. Every person has willpower, but many can't sense it. When you try to use it, you find that you can't find it. Only true experts can feel that power and use it. As for the definition of the will, there are no words that can accurately describe it. I can give you a comparison. When you fight against your enemies, when your immortal spiritual energy, physical energy, spiritual strength, elemental energy, life energy, and all other energies you possess are exhausted, but you still don't admit defeat and continue fighting, what you are fighting with is your will. To the weak, This power is hidden in slumber. Only the strong can continue to persevere through adversity, through absolute despair. Even if death is coming, they will still face their opponent fearlessly, in search of a chance to counterattack with death right before them. The will cannot be taught. If you understand, then you understand. If you don't understand, perhaps you still won't understand even in death. This explanation left some disciples nodding but also some staring blankly. But didn't you say that the will is ephemeral? Why can it become a substantive power here? One is standing at the bottom of the mountain. Looking up, you see the clouds covering the peak. The other is standing above the dome of the heavens, looking down on the mortal world of dust, with all Daos of the heavens in their embrace. I cannot understand Longchen's will because there is simply too large of a gap between my will and his. If I were to randomly talk about it, it would only disgrace me. If it was just humiliating myself, then this old man wouldn't mind losing some of my old face. But to mislead my disciples would be a terrible sin, said Heaven Master Yunyang. Although some people still didn't understand, others could comprehend the general meaning. Heaven Master Yunyang was saying that Longchen's will was far, far stronger than his own, so he could only give a broad explanation. Longchen's will was even stronger than Heaven Master Yunyang's? This was something that made these disciples feel disbelief. The head judge suddenly said, Heaven Master Yunyang is correct. The will is the foundation for a person to get stronger. It can also be explained as a person's determination to get stronger. A strong will can allow someone to maintain their original heart during good times and not lose their heart during bad times. They will not give up to despair. However, to achieve something like what Longchen has and have the will manifest outside is only possible if his will has been tempered through endless blood and slaughter. His will is now capable of being unsheathed as a sharp blade capable of cutting apart the heavens. Suddenly, the formation shuddered. After that, the giant bulge in the formation returned to normal. Did Longchen fail? Longchen's eyes suddenly opened within the mountain range. He smiled. Everyone, gather up. Follow me. Mu Qingyun and the others didn't know what was happening outside. They simply saw Longchen with the air shuddering around him. But hearing his command, they immediately gathered up. Longchen then led them rushing through this maze-like mountain range. Does this mean that he already found the path? They watched as Longchen rushed through without hesitation. When they looked at Chu Kuang's side, someone also cried out, Chu Kuang has found the path and is starting to move out. Chu Kuang's side was just as fast. From the inside, it was impossible to see the full scope of the maze. But the disciples watching could see everything clearly. Chu Kuang's formation master, Tang Yaochen, had already formed a path through the maze, and Chu Kuang and the others were rushing down that path. From the outside, everyone could see that it was correct. The two sides seemed equally matched. Both of them were advancing with shocking speed. In the past, disciples would spread glowing powder to mark the paths that they had tried out before joining together and testing the more likely paths. This saved time in the long run. However, this time, Chu Kuang used a formation master to find the path. That could almost be considered cheating. As for Longchen, he was even crazier. He actually ignored the suppression of the grand formation and directly searched for the path through his divine sense. With both sides moving, the disciples tensed up with nervousness and excitement. They seemed equally matched at the moment. No one could tell who would win and who would lose. Not good. Longchen has taken a wrong turn. He's heading straight for a dead end. No way. Shocked, people looked at Longchen. Unlike Chu Kuang's side, there was no formation lighting up a path for them. Hence, the others on Longchen's side didn't know which way he was going exactly. However, from the outside, they could see that he had taken a wrong turn, away from the correct path. He was getting further and further away. Just now, they had been shocked by Longchen's display. But now, he made such a giant blunder. Chu Huairan and the other magistrate remained indifferent on the surface, but both of them had mocking looks in their eyes. On the other hand, the head judge looked at Longchen with interest. As an expert that had fought on the battlefield, his sharp intuition told him that Longchen definitely wouldn't make such a mistake. However, even he couldn't understand Longchen's path. But by following where he was going, he suddenly smiled. How astonishing! Long Chen had brought his group straight into a dead end, seemingly without sensing anything. Hence, quite a few people shook their heads and sighed. He had already lost with this. Although quite a few disciples in the academy had connections with the Chu family, when compared to the total sum of disciples in the academy, it was still a very small portion. So, the majority of all people actually hoped for Long Chen to win because Chu Kuang's constant arrogance was extremely displeasing. However, watching Long Chen take the wrong path, they sighed dejectedly. That hope in their hearts was extinguished. Long Chen's group quickly reached the dead end. When Mu Qingyun and the others saw it, they were dumbfounded. A giant cliff cut off their path. Brother San, Zhong Ling and the others were dumbfounded. Don't waste words. Keep going. Long Chen brought them straight up to the cliff. Long Chen then jumped onto the cliff and made a mark on it with his hand. Qingyun, give me a cross/ here, shouted Long Chen. Mu Qingyun was stunned. Don't hesitate. Trust me. You can do it, said Long Chen. Mu Qingyun then clenched her teeth and unsheathed her sword. 2 slashes came out in a row, leaving a giant cross-shaped scar on the cliff. When Mu Qingyun struck, the disciples outside cried out in shock. Swordlight. It was definitely swordlight, the specific divine ability of sword cultivators. As soon as Mu Qingyun attacked, it shook countless people. Even Heaven Master Yun Yang's eyes were shining. According to his calculations, Mu Qingyun should have required 3 years of bitter cultivation in order to truly step onto the path of the sword cultivator. Clearly, encountering Long Chen had caused her to completely transform. She had condensed sword light far faster than he had expected. Zhong Ling and the others exclaimed in shock. They saw light coming through the 2 scars on the cliff. This terrifyingly giant cliff was actually only a few meters thick. Mu Qingyun's attack had pierced through it. Li Kai. As soon as Long Chen shouted, Li Kai understood. He stamped on the ground, his leg instantly doubling in size. He then smashed toward the cliff like a cannonball, unleashing a punch. Boom. A hole was blasted into the cliff. Li Kai had awakened his latent bloodline talent, and it gave him shocking physical power. With the cuts that Mu Qingyun had made, he easily pierced through. Let's go! Long Chen immediately led them through this hole, and the disciples outside came to a sudden understanding. So Long Chen had intentionally led them here. After going through this cliff, their path had been shortened immensely, saving them a lot of time. Congratulations, Heaven Master Yun Yang. A powerful sword cultivator has appeared in your God Institute. It's Heaven Master Dong Ming. Why has Heaven Master Dong Ming come here? Doesn't he need to preside over the Immortal Institute's competition? There's nothing to see in the Immortal competition. One side actually just surrendered at the start. It's already over, so I came over here to watch. I didn't think that I'd get to see such a marvelous sight. Heaven Master Yun Yang, congratulations. Heaven Master Dong Ming laughed. Along with Heaven Master Dong Ming were quite a few other instructors of the Immortal Institute, as well as some disciples. Although the Immortal Institute and the God Institute weren't friendly with each other, Heaven Master Yun Yang and Heaven Master Dong Ming were old acquaintances. Everyone also knew that the fighting between the 2 institutes didn't affect their relationship. What is there to congratulate? It probably won't be long before the Sword Dao Institute comes to take her. You also know that we can't provoke the Sword Dao Institute. If they want one of ours, we have to offer them with both hands, said Heaven Master Yun Yang with a smile. Heaven Master Dong Ming first greeted the head judge and the 2 magistrates before sitting. Can you help me arrange 2 more seats here? Heaven Master Dong Ming looked to the disciples behind him. Luo Bing and Luo Ning immediately rushed forward. Heaven Master Dong Ming had actually gotten them seats. Luo Ning gratefully said, Heaven Master Dong Ming, you really are the best. You saved us so much time and brought us to watch the divine competition. The main thing is that I want to watch as well. If your competition didn't end, I couldn't leave either. In any case, the other side didn't have the heart to compete. Ending it was better, laughed Heaven Master Dong Ming. People couldn't help smiling. This Heaven Master Dong Ming was really easy to like. He wanted to watch the divine competition, so he actually openly changed the rules. It was completely different from those instructors who stuck to the rules like they were edicts of the heavens. Furthermore, he didn't bother concealing his intentions or coming up with excuses. He was even this brazen in front of the head judge. Luo Bing and Luo Ning sat and watched as Long Chen charged through the maze. His speed exceeded Chu Kuang's side. Once they passed through the maze, they entered a spacious area. This was a channel so long that they couldn't see the end. As soon as they set foot inside of it, the channel lit up. One ferocious beast after another appeared within, their eyes scarlet like they were crazed, and they immediately attacked. These beasts contained a devilish aura in their eyes. They were bloodthirsty and violent, completely different from the beasts the disciples hunted on the hunting grounds. They've entered the second phase, the devil slaughter path. These beasts have been infected by the devil race's blood. I wonder how many people. Luo Bing shook her head, unable to keep speaking. The divine competition was different from the immortal competition. It was far bloodier, and there were always some casualties when it was held. That was because the God Institute's disciples focused on activating their bloodline power, and to do so, they needed to make breakthroughs under the threat of death. But the Immortal Institute's disciples focused more on comprehending the heavenly Taos. The two paths were different, and the further they went down these paths, the more the two paths diverged. That was why the divine competition was bloodier than the immortal competition. In the cruelest competition of their history, one side lost over 300 people. They had only had 500 people at the start. When Long Chen and the others entered the second phase, the disciples watching tensed up. This was a chaotic battlefield. What was tested was power, not luck. In the face of these devilish beasts, Long Chen simply stood there. However, Mu Qingyun and the others instantly understood and charged forward. Mu Qingyun reached the first beast. Her sword flashed through the air, striking like a bolt of lightning. As a result, that beast that was at the peak of mortal transcendence had its head cut off in an instant, its blood spraying into the air. "Get into formation. Just do what we've drilled," shouted Mu Qingyun, already charging toward the group of beasts. Mu Qingyun's sword danced through the air, and sword light flickered. In just a moment, those beasts collapsed to the ground. How amazing! Luo Ning watched in admiration as Mu Qingyun swept through those beasts. They collapsed before her, not even their blood able to touch her robes. She wove through their midst gracefully. Behind her, Zhong Ling, Zhong Xiu, Li Kai, and the other powerful disciples formed up squads with the other disciples, charging through the beast wave. Mu Qingyun had picked out the strongest beasts to kill, leaving some weaker ones for Li Kai and the others. That way, it would reduce the danger and increase their efficiency. What elites! Even in the face of deviled beasts, they can remain calm and suppress the fear in their hearts. Not bad, not bad. Heaven Master Dong Ming couldn't help praising. These were no ordinary beasts. They had the blood of devils in their bodies, and that gave them a frightening aura that applied additional mental pressure on their opponents. An ordinary disciple would be naturally afraid, but Heaven Master Dong Ming didn't see much fear in the eyes of the unfettered alliance. Their combat power wasn't suppressed. Such an ability was the most difficult to gain, but Long Chen had managed to teach it to them in 1 month. During this time, he had taught them how to face their opponents head-on. Even though they did feel fear, this fear no longer locked their limbs and turned their minds blank. Furthermore, the sight of Mu Qingyun at the front slaughtering these terrifying beasts gave them endless confidence. As they killed the beasts one by one, their fear gradually faded, and their battle intent rose. Their movements gradually became easy and relaxed. In the first clash on the Devil Slaughter path, only a few people were injured. Things then quickly stabilized. They pressed forward with no deaths. The unfettered alliance's display shocked everyone watching. The combat power displayed by those ordinary disciples was even more shocking than Mu Qingyun's swordlight. For a genius to suddenly soar was no surprise. That was because many geniuses would accumulate their power in order to unleash a blazing light. However, Zhong Ling, Zhong Xiu, Li Kai, and the others couldn't count as geniuses, especially not Li Kai and the other members of the elite group that had been considered trash. But their display today amazed even 4 peak experts. People couldn't help looking toward Long Chen. Just what kind of method had he used to turn this group of ordinary people into elites? Ignoring everything else, even if they lost the competition, their fearless will on the battlefield meant that it was very likely that the Inner Academy would still accept them as elite disciples through a battlefield trial. When everyone looked at Long Chen, they found that he was just standing amongst the disciples, overlooking the entire battlefield. He had no intention of helping against these beasts. Long Chen was originally prepared for any mortal danger, but he was comforted to see that these unfettered alliances' disciples really weren't bad. They were handling things without him. Boom. Suddenly, the land shuddered and a giant figure charged over, trampling over the other beasts in its path. Mu Qingyun was startled. She slashed her sword, but when it struck its tusk, a metallic ringing rang out. She didn't manage to sever that tusk. That's a true devil beast, the Berserk blood mammoth. What's going on? There's not supposed to be pure-blooded devil beasts on the devil slaughter path, exclaimed an instructor. The immortal world's devil race was terrifying and strange. Moreover, their blood possessed the ability to infect others. Those infected by their blood would be devilized, becoming bloodthirsty and violent. It was rumored that the devil race had appeared during the era of primal chaos. There were many mysteries when it came to them. Regular beasts that filled this world might reproduce quickly, but they weren't that harmful. On the other hand, the devil race was completely different. If a devil beast died, its corpse would be consumed by other beasts, and they would be infected by their devil blood, transforming into devilish beasts. They were even more ferocious. They would go mad at the sight of blood, fighting until the last drop of blood. The beasts for the devil slaughter path were picked out one by one. But now, a pure-blooded devil beast had appeared, and that shocked everyone. This kind of mistake was unforgivable, as such a thing could wipe out the entire squad. The lives of the disciples could not be used like this. Whoever bore responsibility for this matter would very likely be executed. Is someone cheating? What difference is this from slaughter? Raged someone. Countless gazes glanced toward Chu Huairan, making his expression sink instantly. The ones in charge of this competition are the God Institute's instructors. What are you looking at me for? Such a thing is strictly against the rules of the Academy. Who would dare to cheat? Are they courting death? With that, people couldn't help looking toward Heaven Master Yun Yang. Before he could say anything, the head judge said, "This is not a mistake and is simply an unforeseen event. That Berserk blood mammoth has only mutated recently. You can see that from the blood marks that are still on its tusks. These beasts were prepared 3 days ago, so this accident most likely occurred during this time. It can only be said that Long Chen's side has bad luck." Just at this moment, the Berserk blood mammoth charged at Mu Qingyun, its tusks wildly smashing through the air. She repeatedly dodged and attacked, but her sharp sword light was unable to break through its tough hide. She was only able to leave some superficial cuts. With its giant body, those cuts were nothing. Hence, this was not an opponent that Mu Qingyun could defeat. It only grew angrier as Mu Qingyun dodged. Suddenly, it let out a roar and the void shuddered. It suddenly gave up on Mu Qingyun and charged toward the other disciples behind her. "Watch out!" Mu Qingyun cried out. If that terrifying Berserk blood mammoth charged through them, it was unknown how many people would be trampled to death. "Brother San." Mu Qingyun could do nothing about it, so she could only plead for Long Chen's assistance. With a flash, Long Chen appeared in front of the rampaging Berserk blood mammoth. Its eyes were completely scarlet, but when it saw Long Chen, it suddenly dug its legs into the ground. The Berserk blood mammoth's thick legs left long lines in the ground before it came to a stop less than 5 meters from Long Chen. Dust and dirt almost covered Long Chen. Long Chen simply looked at the Berserk blood mammoth, which looked back at him. One giant figure and one small figure simply stared at each other for several breaths' time, neither side moving. What's going on? Long Chen and the Berserk blood mammoth stared at each other. Eventually, Long Chen said, "What are you looking at?" Hearing his voice, the giant mammoth quivered and took a few steps back. There was a hint of fear in its eyes. The observers were in an uproar when they saw Long Chen scare off such a powerful berserk blood mammoth just like that. Rumor is that higher-level devil beasts possess some intelligence. "This berserk blood mammoth seems to have sensed something," said an instructor. There were many different kinds of devil beasts, and not all of them were brainless. Some had an intelligence not inferior to humans. "Seems like the ominous beast has encountered an ominous human," said Luo Ning. A mutated devil beast's intelligence is a bit higher than an ordinary devil beast. Otherwise, it wouldn't have abandoned Mu Qingyun, who repeatedly injured it to kill others. "But it truly is incomprehensible why it's so afraid of Long Chen," said Luo Bing, feeling shocked. Just what was Long Chen hiding? "Either listen to my orders or die." "Choose," said Long Chen. The berserk blood mammoth quivered, seemingly struggling. In the end, it knelt down and lowered its head, its long trunk forming a bridge. Long Chen smiled and then slowly calmed the raging dragon blood in his body. Just now, he had unleashed his dragon might to suppress this berserk blood mammoth. He had only been testing it out and hadn't expected it to be so effective. The dragon might was still so useful in the immortal world. In front of countless shocked gazes, Long Chen trod over the mammoth's trunk to the top of its head. Even Mu Qingyun and the others were dumbfounded. "Kill them." When Long Chen gave an order to the berserk blood mammoth, it instantly stood and roared, turning to charge through the other beasts. With its giant body, it was like a war chariot blasting through mice. Those beasts were unable to receive a single blow from it. Its tusks glowed, and everywhere they went, blood and flesh flew. Those beasts were like pieces of paper in front of it. Heavens! Long Chen stood atop the berserk blood mammoth's head, appearing like a divine king overlooking the battlefield. That air around him moved the hearts of countless women. There was a wild charisma around Long Chen, one full of danger and could not be tamed, and yet it was this wildness that possessed such killing power. One man and one mammoth rampaged across the battlefield. As for Chu Kuang's side, they entered the devil slaughter path half an incense stick's worth of time after Long Chen's side. However, due to having so many more experts, they quickly caught up. Long Chen's side had barely crossed a fourth of the devil slaughter path when Chu Kuang's side reached the 1/3 point. It was because Chu Kuang's side had Gu Fei, Tang Yaochen, Li Qingbei, Xiang Kejie, Yang Fang and the others. They were all strong experts of their own powers, so these beasts were nothing in front of them. Due to their crazy charge, they left behind the rear where over 10 of their members died. On the other hand, Long Chen's side's steady advance still had yet to meet a single casualty. Slowly but surely, Long Chen's side was being left behind by Chu Kuang. But the addition of the mammoth instantly cleared their path. With such an asset, the beasts in the path were quickly flattened until only a few were left. "That's cheating. It's completely unfair," raged Chu Huairan. Chu Kuang's side was slaughtering the beasts, but Long Chen was actually controlling the strongest beast to slaughter the other, turning this into a play. Chu Huairan was unable to remain still when he saw the vicious beasts on Long Chen's side falling one by one. Cheating? Didn't someone say that such a thing was strictly against the Academy's rules, and that no one would dare to cheat? That they would be courting death? Why has your tone changed all of a sudden? When things were unfavorable to Long Chen, you didn't say anything about it being unfair, did you? As one of the 3 leaders of the Discipline Institute, a person cannot have a narrow, biased heart. There are countless people watching here, so take note of your position. Otherwise, it will affect the Academy's prestige. "My Discipline Institute cannot carry such a bad name," said the head judge. The other magistrate glared at Chu Huairan. That one gaze had many meanings. Some things couldn't be randomly said out loud, or they would be denounced. If it was reported to the dean, it would be very troublesome. Hence, Chu Huairan sat back down, his expression extremely ugly. Everyone knew he was definitely in a bad mood. Before this, when the Berserk blood mammoth first appeared, although it couldn't be said that he had laughed at Long Chen, he had said that no one could cheat here, so it could only be blamed on Long Chen's bad luck. But now that Long Chen controlled it, he switched sides, saying that it was cheating. That was a complete loss of face. Heaven Master Yun Yang and Dong Ming exchanged a glance, both of them shaking their heads, clearly looking down on this kind of person. At first, the Berserk blood mammoth hadn't been going all out while executing Long Chen's orders. However, everything changed after Long Chen had stealthily given it a medicinal pill. That pill ignited its hot blood, and so it began to cooperate with Long Chen. When it did its work well, he slipped it another pill. With 2 pills down, it began to really put in some effort and instantly responded to Long Chen's orders. It was even more obedient than house pets with slave marks. After a few rampages, the devil slaughter path was sparse with beasts. With everyone else following up, more and more of them were killed. And when there were only 10 left, the door at the end of the path opened. Mist flowed out. They could vaguely see a mountain within that mist, and at the top of it was a flag. That was the divine flag. Any group that seized it would be victorious. This was the final crux upon which this competition hung on. "Everyone follow me!" Long Chen shouted and charged forward with the Berserk blood mammoth. With victory in sight, the Unfettered Alliance's disciples roared and chased after him. When Long Chen entered the mist, a faint spiritual pressure pressed down on him. And the further he went, the greater the spiritual pressure. This spiritual pressure magnified the negative emotions inside a person's heart. Adding the mist on the outside, any random thought could instantly manifest itself as an illusion around them. However, this kind of spiritual pressure could be ignored by Long Chen. As he charged forward with the Berserk blood mammoth, Mu Qingyun and the others were quickly left behind. There was no way around it. People without strong enough souls or wills would need to get used to this spiritual pressure bit by bit. If they charged forward recklessly like Long Chen, they would quickly become bewildered. Seeing Long Chen charge forward on his own, completely ignoring the formation, Luo Bing and Luo Ning clenched their fists. They watched anxiously, their palms covered in sweat. Chu Kuang has also passed through the devil slaughter path. He's so fast. A startled cry rang out and drew everyone's attention. They looked over to see that Chu Kuang's side had also opened the door and were rushing over. Perhaps Chu Kuang had sensed something as he also quickened the pace, charging out. Due to how fast Long Chen was going, his soul began to prickle. But it didn't affect him. He then ordered the Berserk blood mammoth to quicken the pace. As a result, the forest within this mist was being crushed as it rushed through. The sound of flying sand and stone followed him. In an incense stick's worth of time, Long Chen reached the top. There was an altar here, and the flag was stuck at the center. Long Chen then rushed up and placed a jade plate in his hand into a notch in the altar. After that, the altar lit up. The mist in this region slowly dispersed. Long Chen was the first to reach it. He left a mark on the altar, and the pressure of the formation on Long Chen's side began to weaken. This way, Mu Qingyun and the others could rush up easier. There were 8 lamps set up on the altar. As Long Chen pressed his hand on the jade plate, his immortal spiritual energy was flowing into it, and the first lamp slowly lit up. The flag could only be taken when all 8 lamps were lit. However, each lamp required a certain amount of time to light up. Furthermore, each person was limited in how much energy they could feed it. In other words, the more people sending energy in at the same time, the faster it would light up. It had nothing to do with a person's cultivation base. What's that? Suddenly, someone cried out in shock. A white light had enveloped Chu Kuang, Gu Fei, Tang Yaochen, Li Chengbei, Xiang Kejie, Yang Fang, and the other experts on that side. They shot toward the core region like a shooting star. Barrier-piercing shuttle talismans. Those cost hundreds of thousands of immortal crystals. It seems that they're using up over 100 of them. Someone recognized the white light. It was something formed by igniting over 100 of such talismans. Chu Kuang had actually ignited over 10 million immortal crystals. Wasn't that too crazy? Furthermore, it was clear to everyone that the reason Gu Fei, Tang Yaochen, Li Chengbei, Xiang Kejie, Yang Fang, and the others had joined him was due to a similar business transaction. This is definitely cheating. What is even the point of holding this competition in the future? Whoever has more money would just win. Luo Ning shot up furiously. Financial power is the foundation of cultivation. It is even more important than talent. Do you not even understand this? No matter how great your talent is, without any resources, what can you do? Chu Kuang's actions have not violated the rules, so where do these accusations of cheating come from? Sneered the magistrate beside Chu Huairan. All the disciples were infuriated. This was truly cheating, and completely brazen cheating at that. Using money to win this competition was practically blasphemy against the High Firmament Academy. People couldn't help looking toward the head judge, but they saw that he remained indifferent. Feeling disappointed, they then turned to Heaven Master Yun Yang, hoping for some justice. Heaven Master Yun Yang shook his head. The path of cultivation is to seek something that will benefit you. To use any means necessary is not necessarily contemptible. Every scrap of resources that you fight for is another opportunity to increase your power, which increases your chance of survival. In front of your own life, the restrictions of morality are meaningless. Although this might sound cruel and shameless, it is reality. You will perhaps come to understand it in the future. Just at this moment, one of the lamps was lit up by Long Chen. However, just as he started lighting up the second lamp, the Berserk blood mammoth raised its giant tusk and smashed it down. Boom. Dust and dirt exploded. Gu Fei's body was sent flying, while the Berserk blood mammoth was also knocked back a few steps. Long Chen died. Gu Fei slammed his hands on the ground, causing countless golden swords to fly out of the earth toward Long Chen. Long Chen was a bit surprised. Gu Fei was actually capable of using magical arts before igniting his divine flame. Furthermore, this technique meant that he was a metal attribute expert. Long Chen instinctively retreated, avoiding the area of Gu Fei's attack. However, at that moment he instantly had a bad feeling. The space he was retreating into felt strange. Scram! A sneer rang out. After that, Long Chen saw Tang Yaochen holding a formation disc pointed at him, and his expression instantly changed. Long Chen vanished, reappearing right outside the door of the Devil's Slaughter Path. He was shocked and infuriated as he had been schemed against. Gu Fei had been nothing more than a distraction for Tang Yaochen to use a formation to send him away. Long Chen, I won't kill you. I'll let you watch as the divine flag is taken away by me, while you are powerless to do anything. Ha! Chu Kuang's arrogant laughter rang out from the top of the mountain. There was also the sound of the death throes of the Berserk blood mammoth. Long Chen's fists then creaked and killing intent exploded in his eyes. Chu Kuang and the others had intentionally tormented the Berserk blood mammoth before killing it just to provoke him. Since you all want to die so badly, I will make sure that you do. At this moment, Thunder Force appeared beneath his feet, and a pair of lightning wings appeared on his back. Like a bolt of lightning, he rushed back to the core. They really did come prepared. Everything is going according to Chu Kuang's plan. Luo Bing's heart clenched when she saw Long Chen be sent out. Chu Kuang was truly sinister. He viewed this competition as something that he had to win, so he was pulling out all the stops. Even with the lightning wings, Long Chen couldn't fly, so he needed some time to catch up to them. Luckily, as he had put in his jade plate first, the pressure on Mu Qingyun and the others lessened, allowing them to advance much faster than before. As for Chu Kuang and the others, they were already igniting the lamps. Suddenly, space shuddered. Chu Kuang, Gu Fei, Tang Yaochen, Li Chengbei, Xiang Kejie, Yang Fang, and the others managed to ignite 2 lamps at once with their combined efforts. Once those lamps were ignited, the mist covering Chu Kuang's side mostly faded. After that, Tang Yaochen took out a formation disc and placed it on the ground. A pillar of light then shot out of it. Have they gone insane? They wasted 8 million immortal crystals for a temporary transportation formation disc in this competition. Are they all money wasters? This formation disc in Tang Yaochen's hands was a small-scale formation that cost an enormous sum. It could be set up anywhere and was usually used on the battlefield for sudden attacks or fleeing. To use it in this competition was practically a waste of a treasure. As the light grew brighter and brighter, the other disciples of the Prime Glory Alliance who had been left behind crushed the talismans in their hands. They were then enveloped by light and transported to this light pillar. Over 400 people were instantly brought to the flag, and this scene infuriated all the spectating disciples. Cheating, absolutely flagrant cheating. What is the point of competing? All the opportunities will be left to those with money. Should people without money just starve to death? That's right. They're already born with more opportunities than others. Now, they won't even give others a chance? What is the point of me cultivating in this academy? To be an extra for those with money. Hey, bad Chu person, you're all trash. From top to bottom, there's not a single good person in your Chu family. Luo Ning directly cursed Chu Huairan. However, her voice was drowned out by the endless cursing of the others. All the disciples were inflamed and cursing. As they cursed, they grew more brazen with their cursing until some were directly cursing Chu Huairan. Shut up. Rules are rules. As long as Chu Kuang doesn't break the rules of the academy, it doesn't count as cheating. You poor beggars, do you think you're qualified to make such a clamor? You are fated to only be extras for the main characters, shouted the magistrate beside Chu Huairan, his voice like thunder shaking these disciples' ears. For a while, they couldn't hear anything, and the plaza descended into silence. These disciples were suppressed, but their eyes were full of rage. As they couldn't curse with their mouths, they did it with their hearts. The head judge suddenly shouted, "You're the one who should shut up. Everyone within the academy is equal. Although the rules are not perfect and some people can take advantage of them, all disciples have a right to fight for their own opportunities. Some disciples are more privileged than others, but opportunities are available to every disciple as long as the disciples fight for them. I am also born from commoners, and neither of my parents was a cultivator. I almost starved to death on the streets as a child, but I still reached this point. Are you saying that I am also just an extra for the two of you?" The head judge's voice was full of dignity and righteous indignation as he shouted to that magistrate. Hearing this, the disciples exploded in thunderous cheering. The head judge had essentially slapped that magistrate in the face. "Head judge, this lowly one was rambling foolishly. I ask that you forgive me. I apologize to you in front of everyone," said that magistrate. His head had grown hot, which was the only reason he had said such foolish words. As soon as he said them, he knew he had done the wrong thing. But he couldn't take them back once they were out. Having so many disciples cursing him had flustered him. Giving an apology now is useless. Do you think this is like the trial hall where you apologize to Longchen? You are one of the 3 leaders of the Discipline Institute, the very representation of the Academy's laws. However, you are an extremist who openly expresses views that harm our disciples. I will report this to the institute head and have him deal with you. Just wait for the result, said the head judge coldly. Although his expression was cold, he was actually delighted inside. That magistrate had actually said something so foolish. Now he was doomed. At the very least, he wouldn't be able to maintain his position after this. The head judge then turned to the disciples. The Discipline Institute's laws are all just. The rules are fair. But remember, even though sunlight warms this entire world, there are also shadows that it can't reach. Don't question the entire world just because you stare into the shadows. All experts are tempered through adversity. As for those so-called geniuses made by throwing resources at them, in the end, they always become whetstones for others. They aren't anything enviable. There is no need for you to be indignant or undervalue yourself. Just look at those black robes in front of you. Do you not understand? The black robes? Startled, the disciples looked at Long Chen and instantly understood what the head judge was saying. Didn't Long Chen also start with nothing? He came to the academy without the money to even apply. But from the path of a worker with no background or resources, he still rose in the academy. Just how amazing was Chu Kuang's background? But against Long Chen, he still needed to buy so many people and waste so much money. Why was that? Wasn't it precisely because he was afraid of losing? Someone with no background or money could force someone like Chu Kuang to be this afraid. That was already proof that family background didn't decide future accomplishments. Because of this, the disciples felt much better and looked toward the head judge with respect and gratitude. However, when they looked at Chu Huairan and the other magistrate, their eyes were full of scorn. Both of those two old fellows had wasted their years. Mu Qingyun has arrived. Luo Bing suddenly cried out. She saw Mu Qingyun taking the lead in attacking the Prime Glory Alliance. Mu Qingyun was originally the closest behind Long Chen as her spiritual strength was stronger than the others. Hence, after Long Chen was schemed against and sent back, Mu Qingyun quickly arrived. But Chu Kuang and the others had started activating the other lamps. If they managed to light 5 of the 8 lamps, then the lamp that Long Chen had lit would be extinguished, and the seal belonging to the Unfettered Alliance would also be erased. At that time, a barrier would appear around the altar, protecting Chu Kuang's side. If that was the case, fighting over the flag would require breaking through the barrier, and that would increase the difficulty even more. Chu Kuang and the others had ignited 2 lamps. With over 400 of them present, igniting another 3 lamps would be easy. And once that happened, the barrier would appear, and it would be as difficult as ascending the heavens for Long Chen's side to take the flag. Stop her! Don't let her get close to the altar, ordered Chu Kuang. They couldn't allow anyone to attack the altar at this time, or the lamplighting would pause. Moreover, the ones that were already lit would also be extinguished, and they would need to restart. Leave it to me. Gu Fei flew out, blocking her path. The number 2 expert of the God Institute? Nothing more than a frog at the bottom of a well. I didn't get to beat Luo Bing this time, so I'll have to use you to show her that if it weren't for this strategy, she would have been crushed beneath my feet. Gu Fei sneered and a rune appeared on his forehead, flowing with immortal qi. As he formed hand seals, runic swords condensed in the air. Heavens, runes condensing into swords. He can already control the power of his divine flame. Isn't that a power that someone can only unlock after reaching the divine flame realm? The disciples outside cried out in shock. Gu Fei was using a magical art that normally only people in the divine flame realm could use. Long Chen was right. This fellow has been hiding his true power, said Luo Bing. Then it's a real pity. Our bloodlines have been activated. If you fought him, you'd definitely win, said Luo Ning, clenching her teeth. The two of them were originally very confident in beating Gu Fei and the others, but the result was that just as they prepared to strike, the other side actually abandoned them, making them feel terrible. Now, seeing the Unfettered Alliance in crisis, they could only sit and watch as spectators. That feeling was truly unbearable. Back to the battlefield, Mu Qingyun's expression was icy. However, her footsteps didn't pause, and she continued rushing forward. Her hand slowly reached back for her sword. Ignorant! I'll make you pay the price for that ignorance. Gu Fei sneered and suddenly changed hand seals. As a result, a runic sword from behind him suddenly shot out at Mu Qingyun. However, as the sound of a sword leaving its sheath rang out, a streak of cold light flashed through the air. The image of a half-moon appeared, crumbling Gu Fei's runic sword. The half-moon continued without pause toward Gu Fei. Seeing this scene, he was shocked. This was just a probing blow, but it was also an attempt to stop her in her tracks. It was because he viewed this clash as a performance for Luo Bing to see. He wanted her to see the difference between them, as he still had some regret in his heart over not getting to fight her this time. However, he had never expected this. According to his estimate, even if he couldn't force back Mu Qingyun with this attack, he should have been able to make her pause. But his attack had no effect at all. With the half-moon slashing toward him, he instinctively dodged to the side. All of a sudden his ear turned cold, but something warm dripped down. After that, he saw his ear lying on the ground as well as his blood. It was only then that he sensed a sharp pain. The disciples outside were all stunned. Mu Qingyun's sword light was actually so powerful that it could ignore the runic sword. The runic sword is condensed from the power of the heavenly Daos. It relies on the merger between a person's core energy and their spiritual will to draw out the power of the heavenly Daos. The power of the runic sword depends on the cultivation base of the user. For it to be unable to bear a single blow isn't because this magical art is weak, but because the difference in wills between the two sides is too great, explained Heaven Master Yunyang. This explanation made people come to an understanding of just how powerful the will was, as well as what exactly it was. Slut, you're courting death. Gu Fei was enraged. This was originally just a performance to him, but he ended up losing face instead. In his fury, he suddenly extended his hand, and another runic sword appeared in it. He then slashed it down in front of him. As the sword in his hand moved, the dozens of other runic swords shot out like bolts of lightning at Mu Qingyun. Mu Qingyun's sword danced, blocking those runic swords, and they were destroyed rapidly. Boom! Sparks exploded between Mu Qingyun's sword and the sword in Gu Fei's hand. This sword was a real sword. So we were tricked by Gu Fei. The reason he can condense those runic swords is because of that divine weapon in his hands. A startled cry rang out. Gu Fei's spirit item was his treasure, possessing innate magical runes capable of summoning runic swords, which didn't possess their own substantial bodies. His sword was the mother sword, while the runic swords that it summoned were the sword children. Hence, the effect was almost the same as runic swords condensed by the magical art. The main difference was that runic swords condensed from the magical art would grow stronger with the user's cultivation base, will, and comprehension of the heavenly Daos. But the technique used by relying on a weapon did not get stronger like that. Despite that, this sword was definitely an absolute treasure. Mu Qingyun was knocked back by it, but Gu Fei also suffered. His blood surged tumultuously inside of him, and he was also shocked to find a tiny nick in his sword. This infuriated and aggrieved him. This was a treasure from his family, and he had actually borrowed it from an expert in his family for the immortal competition. With it damaged, how was he supposed to explain himself to his family? Mu Qingyun was knocked back, but her reaction was far faster. Taking advantage of Gu Fei's alarmed emotions, she slashed a ray of sword light onto the altar. As a result, the altar shuddered, and all the lamps that the Prime Glory Alliance's disciples had been working hard to ignite instantly extinguished just as the fifth lamp began to light up. All their efforts were for nothing. Chu Kuang was infuriated. The barrier was interrupted just as it was on the verge of appearing, so he cursed, "Gu Fei, are you useless? You couldn't even block her." Upon hearing this, Gu Fei's fury soared. Killing intent appeared in his eyes. After that, a rune ignited on his forehead, and divine light bloomed out of his sword. Die! Gu Fei's sword slashed through the air, unleashing waves of ripples in the air. An incomparably sharp aura locked onto Mu Qingyun. Not good. Luo Bing's expression changed, and she shot up. He activated the power of his spirit item. Is he really trying to kill her? The spectating disciples were stunned. Spirit items were normally only capable of being controlled by divine flame experts, but mortal transcendence experts could also activate them with some special means. As for Gu Fei, he seemed to have activated his spirit item with his bloodline power. Hence, the spectators' hearts clenched. The spirit item had completely locked onto Mu Qingyun. There was no running away, nor was there anyone who could help her. Some disciples even closed their eyes, unable to bear watching. In the face of Gu Fei's attack, Mu Qingyun took a deep breath. Her gaze grew sharper and determined. She murmured, "Brother Sen said the heart wields the sword, and the sword has a soul and a will. I have the sword has me. A sword cultivator knows no fear. A sword cultivator has nothing that they cannot cut. Heaven, hell, laws, Daos, all untold dangers, all binding shackles, they are to be broken by the sword." Every single one of her words contained her staunch will. There was an unbreaking determination in her words. In that instant, the world seemed to turn still. The head judge, Heaven Master Yunyang, Heaven Master Dongming, and a few other experts all stared in shock. Mu Qingyun's current cultivation base wasn't even worth mentioning in front of them. But this determination she revealed, along with the merger of the body and the Tao that occurred when she spoke, as if she was merging with the very heavens, deeply moved them. As long as she doesn't die, her future prospects are limitless, murmured the head judge. Long Chen really is a miraculous existence. Heaven Master Yunyang looked at Long Chen, who was still rushing back to the core. As a Heaven Master, he was fully convinced by Long Chen's methods. Just at this moment, Mu Qingyun's sword shuddered. No runes lit up, and no manifestation of the heavens appeared. But in that instant, her sword seemed to come to life. The sharp will of the sword Dao erupted. Even through the formation, everyone felt that sharpness. Just at that moment, Mu Qingyun's sword met Gu Fei's spirit sword. Boom! Runes exploded. Mu Qingyun and Gu Fei were blown back at the same time and coughed up blood. They're actually evenly matched. Mu Qingyun only has an ordinary sword, but she received the full power attack of a spirit item. Heavens, just how did she do this? Countless people were stunned by this. That attack by Mu Qingyun was absolutely marvelous. Mu Qingyun and Gu Fei were blown back a dozen steps. The next moment, Gu Fei forcibly stabilized himself and suddenly began to vomit blood. In front of everyone's shocked gazes, Gu Fei's spirit item split in two. A spirit item had actually been severed by an ordinary sword? How could that be possible? It was like a paper knife and a steel knife clashed, only for the steel knife to be cut apart. It was inconceivable. Just at this moment, Mu Qingyun's own sword began to crack, until it was covered in cracks and shattered into dust. A sword of ordinary metal and a divine weapon had actually destroyed each other. This result was unbelievable. Mu Qingyun also turned pale as paper at this moment, followed by an unhealthy redness appearing on her cheeks. Clearly, she had also paid an immense price for this. Ah! Suddenly, Gu Fei screamed. His forehead split open and blood dripped out. Moreover, his eyes turned scarlet like he had been bedeviled. Mu Qingyun, I will tear you to pieces. Gu Fei had activated his spirit item with his bloodline power. Hence, with his sword broken, his bloodline power also received a backlash. Almost half of the inheritance runes within his ancestral blood were gone. In other words, this one attack from Mu Qingyun gravely damaged his Dao foundation. In the future, he might very well be no longer able to inherit the innate divine abilities of his family. When he thought of this, hatred overflowed from Gu Fei. He agreed to help Chu Kuang because his family had received a letter from the Chu family asking for it. The Chu family not only brought up some business collaborations between them, but they also promised a reward that was extremely enticing to Gu Fei. The pressure from his family and the great rewards were why Gu Fei had abandoned defeating Luo Bing and his chance at fame. However, he had never imagined that in his fight against Mu Qingyun, not only would his spirit item be destroyed, but even his bloodline runes were damaged. That was something completely unacceptable. It meant that the highest realm he would ever reach was the Divine Flame realm. He would never ascend to the Four-Peak realm. To a genius, this was even worse than death. He almost went insane. Die! Gu Fei roared like a wild beast, and another sword appeared in his hand. It was also a spirit item. This was actually his personal item and not some supreme spirit item he had borrowed. He spat a mouthful of blood onto his sword. It buzzed and awoke. He actually used his essence blood to use this spirit item. He had definitely gone crazy. Mu Qingyun was severely injured. Right now, the best choice was to dodge and wait for the others to arrive so that they could charge the altar together. However, she didn't do that. Instead, she took out another sword and faced Gu Fei directly. Boom! Mu Qingyun's sword exploded. The fragments of her sword stabbed into her body, dyeing her clothes red. What is she doing? Why is she fighting him head-on? Luo Ning clenched her fists worriedly. Li Kai and the others would be arriving soon, and Long Chen was getting closer and closer. In just a bit, she would have reinforcements. Fighting directly like this was foolish. Mu Qingyun has already chosen the path of a sword cultivator under Long Chen's direction. In battle, if her sword is unsheathed, she cannot retreat. She can only attack. If she chose to retreat, her sword Dao would be severely impacted. It might even cause a heart devil. So even in death, she won't retreat unless she wishes to abandon her path as a sword cultivator, sighed Heaven Master Yunyang. Weren't sword cultivators a bit too stubborn? They couldn't even retreat? Even if they would die? How was that different from a fool? Die. Gu Fei was sent reeling back, but seeing Mu Qingyun on her last legs, he once more attacked without hesitation. Mu Qingyun solemnly took out another sword. Her body was already swaying, but her hand was steady. Her gaze was as determined as it was at the start. There was no fear on her face. Don't. Some of the female disciples cried out in horror, unable to bear watching her blood fall. Boom. When Gu Fei's merciless slash fell, Mu Qingyun's sword shattered once more. And this time, Mu Qingyun was sent tumbling back. However, she stood up again, her body covered in blood and quivering. Her fresh blood dripped onto the ground, leaving scarlet blooms. Mu Qingyun felt like all her energy had been exhausted, but she still stood. She only had one thought: I cannot fall. Even in death, I have to remain standing. In the first clash, Mu Qingyun had used up all her energy, and the next two exchanges contained only her will. Now do you understand? Asked Heaven Master Yunyang. This formless, inexplicable power is ephemeral but also real. Heaven Master, don't just hold lessons for us. Look at her. Please go save Senior Apprentice Sister Qingyun. Are you really going to just watch as she's killed? Is a genius of the God Institute going to fall just like this? One disciple couldn't bear it. Heaven Master Yunyang shook his head. Rules are rules. They cannot be changed. As soon as Mu Qingyun admits defeat, she will be transported out. But if she refuses to speak, no one can go in to save her. It depends on herself. In the first two parts of the divine competition, disciples could not retreat, even in death. But in the third part, in the fighting between groups, if a disciple was afraid of death, as long as they shouted that they conceded, they would be brought out by the formation. However, that would be giving up their qualifications to compete. Even if their group did win in the end, it would have nothing to do with the person who gave up. Because of it, unless there was no other choice, people wouldn't shout that they gave up. That was not just a loss but also a stain that they would never be able to wash away. Just at this moment, Gu Fei once more attacked Mu Qingyun, who was barely able to stand. There was no longer a sword in her hand. As Gu Fei was charging toward her, the spectating disciples were filled with fury and wished that they could charge in and chop him to pieces. Mu Qingyun could not do anything. The only thing in her head was Long Chen's words: even when facing death, don't close your eyes. Have the bravery to face it. Seeing the sword get closer and closer to her, Mu Qingyun smelled death. She had never been so close to death in her life. However, the moment the sword was less than half a foot from Mu Qingyun's neck, a broadsword blocked it. Gu Fei, I'll kill you. It was Li Kai who had arrived. His eyes were scarlet with rage, and runes lit up all over his body. He was like a wild beast. Having seen everything that had happened here, he rushed over with his full power and saved Mu Qingyun. Fortunately, Li Kai's latent talent had been awoken by Long Chen, so his sword was able to send Gu Fei flying back. Even though Li Kai himself was knocked back as well, his hand bleeding, he didn't care. Even as Gu Fei followed up with a piercing blow to his chest, he ignored it and hacked his sword at Gu Fei's head. Seeing this, Gu Fei was shocked and enraged. He naturally was unwilling to exchange his life for Li Kai's, so he hastily switched moves. Boom. The hasty adjustment caused Gu Fei to stagger back, coughing up another mouthful of blood. Suddenly, a gust of wind blew by, and Gu Fei tumbled back, just barely avoiding Li Kai's killing blow that left a deep line in the ground. This one blow made Gu Fei become covered in cold sweat. Before Gu Fei could find his balance, Li Kai attacked once again. His three moves were all fluid and quick, seeking to take his opponent's life. How fierce! The disciples outside exclaimed in amazement. Each of Li Kai's moves was a true killing blow. He was like a fierce general on the battlefield. Gu Fei was actually sent into a fluster by Li Kai's attacks. Countless people clapped and cheered at this turn of events, hoping for Li Kai to kill him. Even in the Immortal Institute, Gu Fei was not well liked, almost to the same level as Chu Kuang. Suddenly, Gu Fei let out a shout. Grabbing hold of an opportunity, he blocked Li Kai's attack, forcing him back. After that, Gu Fei followed up with an attack to take back the flow of offense. However, when that sword was about to reach Li Kai's neck, Li Kai's broadsword also pierced toward Gu Fei's dantian. It was extremely rapid and vicious. Gu Fei fumed. He could clearly kill Li Kai right now, but the price for that would be having his dantian struck by Li Kai's attack. Although he had a protective divine ability, if he couldn't block it, then today he would truly be crippled. In the end, Gu Fei cowered again and switched to blocking, and the hasty block resulted in him being pressed back. Li Kai chased after him once again, almost cutting off half of his face. Li Kai's fighting technique made people's hearts pound. He was incredibly vicious, practically throwing away his own life. Scram! Just as Li Kai was forcing Gu Fei to flee wretchedly, looking as if he might take Gu Fei's life at any moment, multiple people charged off of the altar. One of them held a bronze rod and smashed it at Li Kai. Boom! Li Kai hastily blocked, only for him to sense an immense power pass through his arms. As a result, he almost lost hold of his broadsword and was forced back 30 meters before stabilizing his stance. You want to compete with power? You aren't even fit to carry my shoes, sneered the wielder of the bronze rod. He had a large figure, being 2 heads taller than an ordinary person. The upper half of his clothes had exploded, revealing his copper skin that had veins wiggled beneath it like countless serpents. Moreover, his blood qi was like a volcano that had been accumulating for 10,000 years and was ready to burst. It's Yuan Xinghui. How is he so powerful? Luo Ning was shocked. Yuan Xinghui was ranked 3 on the immortal rankings. Normally, he was a complete fool and had relied entirely on Gu Fei to reach 3rd place. Hence, Luo Ning had never cared about him. However, today he revealed astonishing power. It was unbelievable. He had truly hidden himself deeply. Yuan Xinghui was about to chase after Li Kai when the altar suddenly quivered. A pillar of light then soared and enveloped the altar. It's over. The barrier has been activated. Mu Qingyun's heart fell to the bottom of despair. Her vision turned dark and she almost passed out. That's too fast, isn't it? They have too many people. Over 400 people are lighting the lamps together, so they are naturally fast. The activation of the barrier almost always means that the competition is over. The power disparity is too great. It's not power disparity but wealth disparity. In this world, if you have money, you can get anything that you desire. The barrier around the altar meant that if Long Chen and the others wished to enter the altar, they would have to break through the formation first. But Chu Kuang and the others would not just allow them to freely attack the formation. This meant that Long Chen no longer had any chance. Haha, the barrier has been activated. Victory is in grasp. Guys, there's no need to have any mercy. Teach these fools a lesson. Chu Kuang instantly became arrogant. With the barrier activated, he no longer had any of his previous cautiousness. He knew that he had already won. He left behind 100 people inside of the barrier to light up the lamps. However, the final 2 lamps would take at least 2 hours to illuminate even with 100 people working together. They were the ones that took the longest to light up. However, with the barrier active, Chu Kuang no longer had any misgivings. Other than the 100 people inside, everyone else swarmed over Mu Qingyun and the others. Kill! Li Kai roared furiously and charged forward, along with Zhong Ling, Zhong Xiu, and the rest of the Unfettered Alliance's experts that were arriving. Mu Qingyun was heavily injured and unable to continue fighting. They had to protect her and buy time for Long Chen to arrive. Kill? Who are you going to kill? You're the ones who are going to die. Yuan Xinghui smashed his bronze rod at Li Kai with his full power. A powerful gust raged. Boom. Seeing this, Li Kai also became ruthless and slashed his sword with his full power. But as a result, his hands were broken and his broadsword was sent flying. It wasn't that Li Kai's power was inferior, but simply that he wasn't skilled with heavy weapons yet. Because of it, he was naturally at a disadvantage. Trash. Scram. Yuan Xinghui's hand was left bloody from the exchange, but he furiously attacked once more. With his weapon gone, Li Kai was struck in the chest. His upper body collapsed and he vomited blood. If it weren't for his tough physical body, that strike would have flattened him. The other disciples charging forward were also sent flying and injured in the first exchange. Even Zhong Ling and Zhong Xiu were defeated. Moreover, another disciple had his head cut off, his corpse falling to the ground. Their opponents were too powerful. These were people that Chu Kuang had bought with his money. In the entire unfettered alliance, the only one who could match them was Mu Qingyun. However, she was heavily injured and couldn't fight any longer. Do you know why I wasted so much effort and resources on this competition? I wanted to beat you in your most confident state. First, I let you see hope before I showed you what despair is. Those who go against me, Chu Kuang, never have good endings. I will break your confidence and leave a shadow in your hearts for the rest of your lives. I, Chu Kuang, will be your eternal nightmare. I heard that during your training with Long Chen, you learned how to face death? Does that mean that you're no longer afraid of dying? Good, then if anyone shouts that they admit defeat, I'll make sure that their line is severed. Not even your ancestors will be able to rest in peace in their graves, declared Chu Kuang. Outside of the battlefield, Luo Bing and Luo Ning's expressions changed. How sinister. He wants to kill all of them. Chu Kuang intentionally insulted them, provoking them into staying here without admitting defeat. As long as no one admitted defeat, he could freely kill them all without punishment. Despicable. Shameless. Trash. Bastard. Son of a bitch. The disciples outside unleashed a torrent of curses. This Chu Kuang made them so angry that they almost broke their teeth by clenching them so hard. Kill them all. Don't worry, there's no punishment for killing people today. Chu Kuang waved his hand. After that, the disciples behind him charged forward with sinister smiles. One of them even shouted, "Kill! Each person's head is worth 1,000,000 immortal crystals. It's just up to who is faster." An uproar exploded amongst the disciples watching. Chu Kuang was absolutely despicable to actually make such a reward system. This way, the Prime Glory Alliance's disciples would kill everyone to gain as much money as possible. The Chu family's people are all despicable. They'll even do something so evil, raged Luo Ning. However, her rage was useless. They were outside the competition and couldn't help. Inside, Chu Kuang himself didn't join in. Even Tang Yaochen, Li Chengbei, Xiang Keje, Yang Fang, and the others simply stood there. The disciples on the battlefield began to kill each other. However, the shocking thing was that despite clearly being weaker, the unfettered alliance's side had greater killing power. In the first clash, over 20 of the Prime Glory Alliance's disciples were killed. Mu Qingyun's people were launching vicious blows with no regard for their own safety. This was a true slaughter where blood flew everywhere. It was such a desperate and bitter sight that the disciples outside could barely watch. Although in the past competitions, casualties were not rare, there had never been such bloody battles between people before. Normally, once one side had an absolute advantage, the other side would simply admit defeat and be transported out. They wouldn't fight like this. Even if both sides did have some enmity between them, after a few people died, they would get afraid, and the weaker party would admit defeat. Hence, this was no longer a competition but a bloody battle. The unfettered alliance was at an absolute disadvantage, but no one admitted defeat. One of them was cut in two but still managed to pierce his sword through his attacker's skull. At the same time, his upper body grabbed onto another enemy's leg, and he bit down with all his remaining power. Despite that enemy trying to shake him off, he didn't let go. Due to the distraction, another disciple managed to kill that enemy. Even though the enemy was already dead, the disciple in half continued to hang on tightly to the enemy's leg. Seeing these, even the instructors were moved. The unfettered alliance's disciples were truly strong. Although their cultivation bases were weak, they were true warriors. Casualties appeared on both sides, but the majority actually belonged to the Prime Glory Alliance. Upon seeing their numbers shrink, Chu Kuang's expression finally changed. A bunch of ants also dare to be arrogant. At this moment, The injured Gu Fei charged in, and the scales instantly tipped. Several disciples of the Unfettered Alliance were instantly killed. Zhong Ling and Zhong Xiu, who were doing their best to kill as many enemies as possible, attacked him, only to be sent flying. They weren't a match for him. Just as Gu Fei was about to take advantage and kill the two of them, a sharp streak of sword light slashed down, making him retreat hastily. He looked over to see Mu Qingyun being propped up by a female disciple. That attack had come from her. "Slut, I'll kill you today." Gu Fei furiously stepped toward her, but his path was suddenly blocked by someone. That person wore a green hat, and green light flowed within his eyes. It was Devil Eye Yang Fang. A strange rune suddenly appeared in his eyes. After that, Mu Qingyun felt a wave of dizziness, feeling like her soul was being stripped away. "Mu Qingyun, are you not going to kneel?" A strange light flowed within Devil Eye Yang Fang's eyes. When he spoke, Mu Qingyun's body quivered. Her eyes lost their luster, as if her soul had been taken. Yang Fang cultivates eye techniques. Mu Qingyun's injuries are too severe, so she is instantly taken in. Devil Eye Yang Fang was an extremely nefarious existence amongst the Outer Academy's disciples. Many people felt fear when his name was mentioned. His eye technique was able to control people's souls, and he had even more terrifying eye techniques. Therefore, not many people dared to provoke him. He was quite famous, but only a few people had ever seen his techniques. Hence, seeing Mu Qingyun instantly fall under his control with just a glance, they were shocked. Despicable! Mu Qingyun is severely injured and exhausted. Otherwise, with her sword Dao Will, how could she be so easily captured by his technique? Yang Fang really is in the same pack as Chu Kuang. Yang Fang's sudden move truly was taking advantage of her state. It was not the action of a strong and courageous person but the action of a coward. Senior apprentice Sister Qingyun. The disciple supporting Mu Qingyun cried out in a panic, but she didn't seem to hear. Her whole body was shaking. "Kneel!" Devil Eye Yang Fang shouted, causing her shaking to get even worse. She was under the control of his eye technique, but her will continued to resist. Seeing Chu Kuang and the others just standing to the side, Luo Bing suddenly shouted, "Chu Kuang is so insidious. He doesn't just want victory, but he also wants to humiliate the Unfettered Alliance's disciples and shatter their confidence. He wants them to be broken for the rest of their lives. Then he'll use them to infuriate Long Chen, while Tang Yaochen hides at the back. Look, he is silently forming hand seals. There are runic fluctuations spreading across the land. He's setting up a trap. The Unfettered Alliance's disciples have now become bait for Long Chen." Hearing that, Luo Ning was startled and hastily looked at Tang Yaochen. Just as Luo Bing said, his wide sleeves were quivering slightly. He was definitely secretly forming hand seals. There were occasionally faint runes appearing in the surroundings, and everyone was focused on the battle. If it hadn't been for Luo Bing's reminder, no one would have noticed. After spotting this, they looked at Long Chen, who was running back. He was on the verge of reaching the battlefield again, and they felt a chill. Although they all detested Chu Kuang, they had no choice but to admit that he was truly crafty. He was like a viper that devoured its prey whole. This scheming heart was frightening. At this moment, Yang Fang's eyes flickered. Mu Qingyun had fallen into his illusions but was still resisting his orders, infuriating him. He shouted several times, but Mu Qingyun didn't kneel. Her knees didn't bend. Suddenly, Yang Fang's gaze changed. His voice became soft. "Tell me, who's the person you like the most?" "I don't have someone that I like. I worship my brother San the most," answered Mu Qingyun. The light in Yang Fang's eyes intensified. "Your brother San wants you to take off your clothes. Quick, take off your clothes." The experts outside were enraged at this shamelessness. If Mu Qingyun did this, then once she recovered and realized what she had done, would she even want to live any longer? It was more malicious than killing a person. Right now, even the head judge's expression changed, and a vein pulsed on his head. Dense killing intent radiated from his eyes. "Senior Sister Qingyun, you can't." The disciple propping Mu Qingyun cried out, but just at that moment, she fainted and collapsed. Mu Qingyun's eyes were lifeless, and she appeared bashful. It was unknown if that was the reservation of a young woman or her will to resist, but she didn't move her hands. Quickly, take them off. Your brother San is waiting. Yang Fang's voice was full of enticement. It was a voice that gave people chills. Finally, Mu Qingyun's hands reached toward her chest. Zhong Ling and Zhong Xiu cried out, screaming for her to stop. However, she didn't hear. They wanted to charge over, but Gu Fei sent them flying once again. Yang Fang grew excited, and he formed hand seals, pressing her. Quickly, quickly, you've almost done it. You die. A voice rang out like a celestial god's furious roar, shaking the very heavens. This furious roar contained a supreme will. As a result, Yang Fang's head exploded, and this made Chu Kuang and the others jump in shock. As Devil Eye Yang Fang's headless corpse fell to the ground, blood flowed out of his neck. It's Long Chen. The experts outside cheered. That roar had come from Long Chen. He had finally reached the battlefield. Long Chen was extremely anxious about everything that he was seeing after he was schemed against. However, his thunder force wasn't strong enough to allow him to fly, so he could only run. And when he saw Devil Eye Yang Fang's attempt to humiliate Mu Qingyun like this, his fury soared. As soon as he was close enough, he gathered his spiritual strength for a roar, directly striking Devil Eye Yang Fang. If the latter hadn't been concentrating all of his spiritual strength on Mu Qingyun, this roar would only have injured him. However, with his spiritual strength scattered, this roar instantly threw his eye technique into chaos, and the explosion of spiritual strength destroyed his head, ending his life. While some people were shocked, the experts outside cheered. This Devil Eye Yang Fang deserved death, so they were all delighted by this. Even the head judge sighed with relief inside. If Long Chen hadn't stopped Yang Fang, then even if the head judge had to take on the infamy of being a rule breaker, he would still have crushed Yang Fang. Worst case, he would simply give up his head judge position. After Devil Eye Yang Fang was killed, Long Chen shot out like a lightning bolt. At this moment, the Unfettered Alliance's disciples that were still fighting instantly found their pillar, and their morale soared. Long Chen, don't enter the battlefield. They've set up a trap. Luo Ning shouted, but it was meaningless. The people in the competition couldn't hear the ones outside. Long Chen was already charging into the battlefield. As soon as he reached them, countless runes lit throughout the battlefield. Rays of light then converged on Long Chen. Scram! At the rear of the crowd, Tang Yaochen smiled coldly. He rapidly formed hand seals. Following Tang Yaochen's hand seals, runes lit up throughout the battlefield, and space began to twist. Tang Yaochen wants to send Long Chen back to the start again. He just got back. If he's sent back out, everything will be long over by the time he returns. Chu Kuang wants to anger Long Chen to death. He wants him to powerlessly watch as Mu Qingyun and the others are humiliated and killed. The disciples outside felt profound powerlessness when they saw these spatial runes. Chu Kuang was incredibly sinister. His schemes came one after another, leading people to despair. Seeing Long Chen be enveloped by those runes, people sighed. Despite Long Chen's power, Chu Kuang still had him in the palm of his hand. Chu Kuang had power, wealth, and powerful background. How were other people supposed to fight him? Just as everyone thought that Long Chen was about to be transported out again, a divine ring appeared behind him. Boom! Those runes wrapping around Long Chen were instantly blown apart by a 7-colored divine ring. Their fragments blew through the air, revealing Long Chen within. What? The transportation formation was broken? Heavens, what cultivation technique is that rainbow ring? The rainbow divine ring behind Long Chen raged, unleashing explosive power that shook the land and sky. Brother San! Mu Qingyun cried out. Now, this girl that had faced death without fear choked up. Good job. You've won face for your brother San. You should feel proud. The fighting of the martial path is no game, and the rules given are only obeyed by fools. The strong are always above the rules. Don't complain, as every person can be above the rules, including you. It just means that the current you is still not strong enough, comforted Long Chen. The Unfettered Alliance's disciples drew back. As for the Prime Glory Alliance, they retreated back to their own camp. Both sides stared at each other. Boss-san, sorry, I've made you lose face. Li Kai was helped up by others. His body felt like it was falling apart, but he forced himself to meet Long Chen directly. He was filled with shame. Before the battle started, they were filled with confidence, to the point of thinking about how to oppress Chu Kuang and the others. Now, they had only verified why Long Chen had called them naive. They were truly naive. They were practically unable to bear a single blow from Chu Kuang's powerful lineup. Thinking of how overconfident they had been, they had an urge to slam their heads into the ground and kill themselves. You did well. At the important moment, you were all real men. I am proud of all of you. Long Chen gave Li Kai a medicinal pill. It couldn't instantly heal him, but it would at least take away some of the pain. Brother San, we have to admit defeat. I don't want more of my brothers and sisters to sacrifice their lives for nothing, said Mu Qingyun bitterly. She looked at the corpses on the ground and wept. The people she had laughed and joked with were now lying on the ground. They would never get up again. Hence, her heart was breaking. She didn't want to see more of them die. The other side was too strong, and they didn't have a single chance. Most of all, she didn't want Long Chen to jump into a death trap. Chu Kuang had clearly laid down a trap for Long Chen. If he jumped in, he would definitely die. In the face of death, Mu Qingyun's wits grew sharper. She could already tell that Chu Kuang's ultimate goal was actually Long Chen. He was insulting and tormenting them just to provoke Long Chen, making him charge forward recklessly instead of admitting defeat. That way, he could freely kill Long Chen. No, we won't admit defeat. I'd rather die here than lower my head to these pieces of trash. I'll kill them. I've already gotten 2, so I've profited. I can drag down a few more with me. Plants live 1 lifetime. Humans live 1 lifetime. Boss San has said that cultivation is to live with dignity. If we can't even have our dignity, what's the point of living? We already risked our lives today, and will continue to use our lives as evidence of our Unfettered Alliance's hot blood and unbending dignity. The Unfettered Alliance's disciples instantly cried out when Mu Qingyun suggested that they gave up. The Prime Glory Alliance had gone too far, and someone had to make them pay a price. Hence, these disciples would rather die here than unwillingly live the rest of their lives, drifting meaninglessly. Over 70 members of the Unfettered Alliance were lying on the ground, dead. Hence, the others no longer felt fear, they only felt hatred. They had to kill. Haha, a group of ants also dares to be arrogant? Then come. If you have guts, don't kneel and beg for mercy in a bit, sneered the opposing experts of the Prime Glory Alliance. Over twice the number of people had died from the Prime Glory Alliance. Also, some of them had shouted that they admitted defeat during a moment of danger and were transported out. Other than the 100 people inside the barrier lighting the lamps, Chu Kuang's side had less than 100 people left. However, these 100 were the true experts of the group, and they weren't afraid of the Unfettered Alliance's disciples at all. These experts were just waiting for Long Chen and the others to send themselves to their deaths, so they intentionally provoked them. Brother San, Mu Qingyun looked at Long Chen, too emotional to know what to do. Long Chen patted her shoulder softly. Leave it to me. Just protect yourselves. Some enmities can only be repaid with blood. There is no other path. Long Chen then left Mu Qingyun in the care of another female disciple. He walked forward, and the rest of the Unfettered Alliance's disciples immediately followed, clenching their weapons tightly. They were like a pack of wolves. As long as Long Chen said the word, they would charge. The craziness of these disciples was one part thanks to Long Chen's teachings, while the other part was thanks to Chu Kuang. He had repeatedly insulted them, and Devil Eye Yang Fang had even tried to insult Mu Qingyun, the goddess of their hearts. Because of this, they no longer cared about their lives if they could get their vengeance. I didn't expect you to have some skill. You didn't fall for it, sneered Tang Yaochen from the rear. According to the original plan, Long Chen should have been sent out again and had to witness the Unfettered Alliance be wiped out. That would drive him crazy. That was the mission that Chu Kuang had given Tang Yaochen, But unexpectedly, Long Chen had broken free of the bindings of his formation, so he was rather incensed. "No one can use the same move in front of me twice," said Long Chen coldly. "It's Long Chen, right? You're very arrogant. I heard that your power is extremely strong. Try and receive a single attack from me." Seeing Long Chen draw everyone's attention like a ruler, Yuan Xinghui was extremely displeased. He didn't have the patience for Tang Yaochen to waste words with Long Chen, and he directly smashed his rod at Long Chen. "You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.